I have 100 days to beat the island, ARK's very first map, but that would be too easy. So I have my harvesting rate set to 0 times, meaning that anytime I try to harvest or gather materials, I get absolutely no resources. I can't mine trees, rocks, dinosaur bodies, or even pick bushes and rocks off the ground. Is it even possible to beat the Overseer like this? These 100 days were insane. It was day 1, and I woke up on the beach, confused, naked, and afraid. I tried to gather some materials to clothe myself, but no matter how hard I punched the tree, or how firmly I grasped this bush, the weird hologram inside my forearm remained empty. With no other options, I decided to spawn at West Zone 2 so I could do a note run and level up. It started out as a normal note run, but whenever I got the 4 times note, something happened. As soon as I opened the tech pod, my purpose in this simulation became clear. I had one sole objective: defeat the Overseer. But first I would have to steal all 9 artifacts and use them to take down Mama Brood, Papapithecus, and Doug. And then I would find my target, the Overseer. He must be taken down. After this sensational revelation, I jumped in the water to cure my thirst. Since I can't pick any berries to cure my thirst, I told myself that I would not sprint anymore. That way I can conserve my water. But unfortunately, that did not last very long, as I didn't put any points into my discipline stat.
You stupid!
After completing a world record Explorer No speed run, I got really hungry, and then my bones broke and I decided to take a nap. After I awoke from my slumber, still naked and slightly more afraid, I finished the rest of my note run while pondering how this challenge is most likely impossible and I might be wasting 100 hours of my life. Wow, that's depressing. After walking around aimlessly for the rest of the night, day 2 began, and I had to come up with a plan. Still traumatized from the unspeakable acts of day 1, I needed a means to defend myself. The only reliable method of getting resources that I could think of was getting supply drops, so I immediately got to work and started snatching up every single free handout that the South Beach was going to give me. After being violated by every single creature in Bikini Bottom, I got my first weapon, and now I felt confident that I could defend myself. Come here, boy. After searching far and wide for free handouts, I finally found the supply drop I was looking for. I now had trank arrows, and so I had come up with a plan. I wanted to be able to tame some dinosaurs, but carnivores were completely out of the question as I couldn't get meat from harvesting bodies and I didn't know how else to get any meat. Herbivores were possible though, because even though I couldn't harvest berries from picking them off the ground, I could kill wild dinos and get the auto loot that it gives you. With this in mind, my goal was to tame an iguanodon, because if I had an iguanodon, I can use their special ability to turn berries into seeds. And then I could use the seeds to plant berry crops and tame whatever I want. After demolishing some loot crate items for materials, day 2 came to a close. I began day 3 by pretending to get revenge on my mortal enemy, and then I set out with the goal of finding an iguanodon to tame. A few seconds later, I met a raptor with no regard for personal space. Whoa, chill bro, chill! No way I didn't just die right there. But this was actually perfect timing because that raptor dropped some berries that I needed for the iguanodon tame. Even though the entire world was out to get me at this point. Seriously bro, not again. I managed to get a crop plot out of a supply drop, which is huge because I wouldn't need to get the stone to craft one. And then I snatched up the freest egg of all time. Big profit. Now that I had everything I needed to tame an iguanodon, I ended off day 3 by setting up the most impressive base that ARK has ever seen. Yeah, looks pretty good. I left the comfort of my home on day 4 and immediately got mugged. After fighting to get back the strongest weapon in my arsenal, I gathered the materials to make a preserving bin because my berries were quickly spoiling. I'm cutting out all the hundreds of horrible supply drops that took the entire day for. On day 5, I set out to find an iguanodon to finally tame. I also decided to kill anything I ran into because I wanted to get as many berries as possible to make sure I had enough for the tame. For the most part, everything I killed did not drop any loot at all. Well, that was a waste of arrows. After a lot of wasted time, I finally found the iguanodon I was looking for as I went to loot a purple drop. Now, unfortunately, this purple drop was absolutely terrible and the iguanodon was not that great of a level, but all that really mattered was now I was going to be able to grow my own berries. The iguanodon was down, But before I could even celebrate, I noticed that there was some raptors very close by. This really scared me, because if they came close to the iguanodon and they killed it, I would have lost everything that I worked for this entire time. So after heading back to base to make some bolas, I returned with a license to kill. But like pretty much everything else in this game, they dropped me no loot. I then tried to 1v1 a Diplo because they can't fight back and I really wanted some loot. He gave me no loot. After killing some Titan boas and a Sarco and still not getting any loot, this Baryonyx decided to absolutely ruin my day. Then, after getting an ankle breaker on this Pego, I managed to repeatedly get violated in every single way possible by this Baryonyx.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine. You're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But then I realized that his turning radius is absolutely abysmal, so I literally just ran circles around this man and pretended like I didn't just waste 50 arrows. Let's go! First try! Yeah, just cut out the times I died. As annoying as it was, killing that Baryonyx was huge for me, because I actually had enough berries now to tame the iguanodon. After taming my iguanodon, I wasted no time and went ahead and had him create me some mejo berry seeds. I then brought him back to my humble abode, and I wasted no time placing down my crop plot so I could get some mejo berries growing. After meeting a mentally handicapped shark, I decided to give my iguanodon the name of a champion. This was the beginning of an era. Nice. After spending some quality time with the iguanodon, I ended off day 7 by demolishing all the structures I had got from supply drops because I really needed resources. It was now day 8 and my new objective was to get some hide and fiber to make an iguanodon saddle. But unfortunately, I managed to set the world record for the worst supply drop luck in ARK history. Oh, come on, man. Hundreds of supply drops and traveling halfway across the map. Ow. You really would expect to get something good, right? Dude! Yeah, no, this is ARK. That's not how things work. After getting assaulted by a terror bird, I then made a tactical error and grabbed a pterodon egg right in front of its parents. Well, this is unfortunate. And then I grabbed the egg again. I don't really know what I was thinking right here. Yeah, honestly, I kind of deserved that. And then to finish off day 8, I kind of, What the heck, bro? Are you good? So, I knocked a shark out with my bare hands. It took an entire night, by the way. And then I grabbed his unconscious body and like threw it 100 yards into the ocean. Yeah, that would sound really weird out of context. So anyway, the supply drops were still horrible. And at this point, I had literally traveled to the other side of the map and got nothing in terms of hide or a good weapon. I am literally getting trolled right now. And then I got occupied at a green drop because these dillos would not leave me alone and the drop would not come down. I feel like I'm playing zombies right now. The drop was actually really good, but then this happened. Oh no, I can't see. Turns out that light from the drop was the only light that was here. And right whenever I was about to change my gamma, I literally can't see anything, bro. And unfortunately, I was on the other side of the map, so it'd be very difficult to get my stuff back. I gathered some items and tried to go get my stuff, but then this raptor pulled up. Oh! So then I did what anyone else would do. I ran. And then I had the 69,000 IQ idea to parachute across this gap. Now that I'm editing this, if you're telling me I'm stupid in the comments, I 100% agree with you. Bro! That was probably the stupidest thing I could have possibly done there. I made one more attempt to get my stuff, but after 30 minutes of trying to get there, it didn't work out too well. What? So after accepting that I just wasted 2 days, 2 hours of real life time, trying to get my body back and getting all the supply drops across the map, I decided to just stay at the South Beach and keep looting drops until I had enough hide and fiber to make the iguanodon saddle. So after destroying every single item that I worked 10 entire days to get, I finally had an iguanodon saddle to show for it. As I put my saddle on the iguanodon, you could see the excitement in his face. As I took one out for a quick spin, I had to come up with a new plan. And I decided that I was going to craft a raft so I could move up to the north where there's better supply drops. I then needed to figure out what kind of dinos I was going to use for the boss fight. My initial thought was either a dire bear or a therizino because these can take honey and berries to tame and I wouldn't need any meat. The issue was the saddles were extremely expensive and I didn't think this was very viable. So I decided to ponder on that for a little bit and go ahead and focus on my raft. The issue was that I needed a lot of hide and a lot of fiber. And not being able to collect resources is why I'll always be homeless in this challenge. But I do actually have a massive vacation home in MrMeola Go. MrMeola Go is a free-to-play PAL-like survival game with base building, open world exploration, and team-focused boss battles. All of which you can do on a multiplayer server with your friends. But all of that is just normal survival game stuff. The best part of these PAL-like survival games is of course the pals. And in MrMeola Go, there's definitely no shortage, with over 100 pals to befriend. Or 100 pals to eviscerate, to each their own I guess. Each pal has their own unique personalities and capabilities, including skills, strengths, and elements that can help you fight off the dangers of the world, or gathering, planting, and production capabilities to help you build your own massive penthouse. Or you could just, eat them. Yeah, you can do that apparently. Anyways, MrMeola Go is available today on mobile and PC via the Play Store and the App Store. There's pals to discover and worlds to uncover. So make sure to click the link in the description to get started, and a big thanks to MrMeola for sponsoring this video. So I decided to go ahead and pack up everything into Juan the Iguanodon and head north while I gathered the resources to make the raft. So now it's time to cue an epic loot gathering travel montage.
I do it again.
Add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up, I'm just doing me, everything is on me, oh you matter what, add it up, bankroll, euro, peso, add it up.
Finally, after Juan got stuck on a tree, I got the drop I've been looking for. It is about time. 90 fiber, 7 narcotics, 26 flint, 41 hide. Now I can potentially get a raft. I need 15 more hide. So after making it back to the beach, on the start of day 16, I demolished a bed I had in my inventory to finally create a raft. But before I could place it in the water, a pterodon landed right next to me and I happened to have everything on me to tame it, so I tamed it. I had a few pieces of meat from a white supply drop, but the issue was that I really couldn't get any more. So once this pterodon ran out of food, it was kind of over, but at least I could use him for the meantime. While I was waiting for my pterodon to tame, I went ahead and set up my raft. And after a while of sorting through my inventory, Juan the Iguanodon finally had a friend. Although Juan's new friend did not have a saddle, and me trying to get this pterodon to land on this raft without a saddle was the most annoying thing I think I've ever done in all of my 4,000 hours on ARK. But after getting Juan and Terry settled and getting a few more things in order on my raft, I finally set sail for the north. Alright, let's do it. Literally 10 seconds after leaving the beach, things went downhill quick. Terry got assaulted by a Sarco. Luckily, I was able to get Terry out of there safe, and Juan the Iguanodon took his revenge. Get off of my raft, bro. And now, everything was good, but my storage boxes were very, very damaged. I then came across some bags from things that Aloes had killed on this island, and it was very, very risky, but I really wanted to try to get that loot. So, I jumped in the water, swam to the island, and things actually went pretty well. Even though I had a 5-star rating, I managed to successfully complete the heist and outrun the cops. I then realized that I had no bed on my raft because I demolished every single bed I ever got for the hide. With this in mind, I had to incubate myself. That way I wouldn't freeze to death, and this kind of became a pretty big issue. As I made my way through the snow biome, day 16 came to a close. I realized I only had one mayho berry left, so I gave it to Juan to turn into a seed, but then he just ate the berry because I may have been neglecting to feed him. Sorry, Juan. As I made my way out of the snow biome, I found myself in a very dangerous river, and this was terrifying. And then when a direwolf tried to board my raft, it subtly moved Juan a little bit closer to me, and then ARK did that thing where it thinks there's something in front of you so you can't move. I managed to fix it before grabbing this supply drop. Absolutely terrible, by the way. But then this happened, so now I had to waste a ton of resources to rebuild all my fire that the direwolf destroyed, and Juan the Iguanodon was also really low health now, so he couldn't really take anything else on. It was not looking good. The night was rather uneventful, which is a good thing, but I did have to eat all the rest of our food, and there was nothing left for Juan. As the sun rose over the island on day 18, I had finally found my destination. We are on day 18, and I decided that I wanted to go to Carno Island to get some supply drops. I want to go across the water, but I don't want to take my raft. I was worried that there would be elite sickties in the water that might destroy my raft. Well, my entire run would be over, basically, so I really wish my pterodon had a saddle. So with no way of getting any chitin to make a pterodon saddle, I put up all my stuff and jumped in the water heading to Carno Island. Is that an alpha? Oh no, he's gonna catch me. Bro, look how fast he is. It's so unfair. So now I'd have to rethink my strategy. Should I take my raft? So after getting a part-time job as an exterminator, yeah, get wrecked, I realized that I was on a time crunch to make a crop plot. All the mortar and pestle is literally dead. I have 2 hours before this spoils. So I used every last bit of fiber I had to create a crop plot so I could plant some more mayho berries. What are you looking at? After a lot of deliberation, I decided that I did not want to take my raft across the water because the chance of a whale destroying it was a little bit too risky for my liking. Everything was going really well for about the first 80% of the swim, but then this happened. Oh my, at level 8? As devastating as that death was, I decided to give it one more try, and luckily I had moved all the sharks out the way, so I made it pretty easily. Now that I was there, I got right to work and started looting some supply drops. Oh, that's a smithy blueprint. If I'm gonna spend the time to get drops, they need to at least be good drops. Like, come on, man. Safe to say, things didn't go too well. Look at this! Bro! And just like that, I was back to square one. This is so stupid. And at this point, I was starting to regret even starting this challenge, and I was losing hope. I didn't really know what to do. I really don't know what to do. Like, I'm stuck. I don't have any means of getting saddled. Nothing is spawning. There's no drops anywhere to be found. But then, just when I needed it the most, a red drop spawned right next to my base. Ooh, okay. It was nothing crazy, and honestly, it really wasn't even that good. It was just a pike and a rifle that I would never get ammo for, but it was just the push that I needed to continue forward. So, after topping off my mayho berry crops with some more fertilizer, day 20 began. I harnessed my newfound motivation and swam right back across that ocean to Carno Island. Now that I was on Carno Island looting drops, I realized that I was getting really hungry and I really needed some food. Oh, what's going on here? But luckily, I realized that the dinos on this island often fight each other and then they drop bags that have a ton of free berries. This was going to be a very, very big part of this run. So, after this blue drop literally disappeared right in front of my eyes. No! That could have been the pterodon saddle. I found myself trapped on top of this rock surrounded by extremely dangerous creatures. And before I could even come up with an escape plan, a scorpion sneaked up behind me and forced me to think fast. At this point, I finally got away from the scorpion, but then some random Carno pulled some voodoo matrix maneuver, and then I didn't even know what to do. After making it out of that very stressful situation, I managed to loot a few supply drops, and I continued to grab bags in order to get berries so I would not starve to death. And once I got a bow, I was able to sustain myself by killing for berries, so I was really able to get a lot of supply drops. Does that say that? He gave me nothing. I'm dead. No way. Get destroyed, bot. What? And just like that, day 21 came to an end, and so did I. So now it was the start of day 22, and I was back at my raft. Only 21? My mayho berries were going really slow, and I didn't really feel like swimming back to Carno Island to get my stuff right now. I then realized that beaver dams spawned right here next to where I set up. This was amazing because I would have unlimited wood, cementing paste, and rare flowers and mushrooms, which I can use as food. I then proceeded to get a few horrible drops to prove that I'm actually on vanilla rates. This is actually terrible. And then I scared a raptor off with nothing but my bare hands. Okay. And after editing out all the unsuccessful attempts of me going to Carno Island to get my body, day 22 came to a close. And I got some sweet, sweet revenge. This video took me like 100 hours to record and another 100 hours to edit, so if you're enjoying it, please consider subscribing, and let me know if you're one of my first 100k subscribers. As the sun rose over the island on the beginning of day 23, I decided I'd stick around a while to get some more supply drops.
Who coded these drops on ARK? Who did this? Like, what is wrong with you?
After countless horrible supply drops, I decided to attack the Alpha Raptor for some loot. But then this happened.
Yep, I knew it. That's insane.
So now that I was back at base, I decided to come up with a plan for what I was going to tame for the boss fights. My initial thought was either some Theries or some Dire Bears, but the issue with that was the saddles were way too expensive, and as we can see from the drops, it doesn't seem feasible that I'll ever have the resources to make that. So I thought maybe I could do something that doesn't require a saddle. And my first thought was Dire Wolves, but Dire Wolves take meat and I can't really get any meat. What else could I do that's berries, no saddle, and is still strong? Gigantopithecus. The main issue with this is that anything without a saddle is pretty squishy. It dies very easily. But I don't really have a means to get saddles, so maybe I can do this for at least the broodmother, maybe even the Megapithecus, and maybe even Doug. But there is no way I can do the tech cave. So eventually I'll have to go to Theries, which is probably what I'll do. But for now, this was the plan. So I swam back to Carno Island, got my body back, died again. Then I went back to Carno Island again, got my body back again, and then came back home. So at the start of day 25, I loaded up Juan and set out to see what he really could do. Before getting the Gigantopithecus in the redwoods, I wanted to make sure Juan could hold his own because it's dangerous out there.
Juan is a beast, bro.
The reason I never took Juan to Carno Island was that there's a lot of sharks out there, and as much as I died, he's not great in the water either. I'd imagine the same thing would happen to him. So this is the first time really seeing his true potential.
This isn't just one a iguanodon. This is one the iguanodon.
So after I spent the entire day 25 taking Juan out to get beaver dams, drops, and kill a bunch of things, I went back to base and got ready to tame a Gigantopithecus. And so at the start of day 26, me and Juan set out to the redwoods, a pretty far way away from where we were currently. The journey was mostly uneventful, except for a few nuisances, but of course they were no match for Juan.
Bro. Oh no.
So, after half a day of travel and killing a lot of raptors, I finally made it to the redwoods. As I began my search through the redwoods, I had the mejoberries in my last slot so I could passive tame a Gigantopithecus. But then a pego came up and stole them, and it instantly tamed the pego.
What? No!
I thought that all my berries were gone and I would have to go back and get more.
Oh, thank God.
But luckily the pego still had them in his inventory.
Okay, well now I have a pego.
So, me, Juan, and a pego that did not deserve to be here kept searching for the Gigantopithecus for the next hour, and we could not find anything. But after accidentally taming another pego and giving him a very appropriate name, Nice, I realized that this entire time I had been playing on a level cap of 120 instead of 150, which is how official servers are normally set up. So I did a quick Google search, and apparently it's because the enable single player settings box is checked, but whenever I unchecked that and went back in the game, the level cap was still the same. So then I did some other stuff. You can see I'm changing it in the files here. I don't really know what I was doing, but it fixed it. So that's what I did. And then I loaded back in and everything did seem to be good now. The max level was 150. Everything was in increments of 5. It was just like official. So as I loaded back into the game, it looked like all the wild dino spawns had been wiped and everything was spawning back in. And soon after that, I finally found a Gigantopithecus.
140! And it's a male too.
So I wasted no time and got right to taming this guy.
Man doesn't have very much of an appetite, does he? Man, he's one berry and he's good for 2 years. Bro, how does one berry turn into that. Nice. Whoa.
After bringing my new ape back to 1, I realized that he was gathering fiber and that he could collect berries even though I was on 0 times rates. I decided that anytime he collects that, I'm always just going to throw it out because I'm trying to play with no harvesting. Even though he can technically do it, that's cheating, alright? I just know if you ever see it, I throw it out. So it was now day 28, and while I was trying to think of a name for my new monkey, I went ahead and took him back to base, and I made sure to name some folders in his inventory. That way I knew his stats for whenever we started breeding.
As you can see, now there's red drops spawning over there. That was not happening before.
Yeah, so apparently that difficulty setting also affects the drop rates, and I was getting extremely nerfed drops this entire time.
So I kind of wasted 30 days. But that's okay. We learned.
So it looks like I'm going to be having a much easier time from now on.
Yeah, these drops are much better now.
So before getting a female monkey to start breeding, I decided that I would go ahead and loot some of these enhanced drops and see what I could get. So, after a long day at work, I decided to give this ape a proper name and go ahead and head home. As the sun rose on day 30, I headed back to the redwoods, and very quickly this time, I found another Gigantopithecus.
Oh. It's a 145 male. Oh, man.
Even though the monkey was not a female like I was hoping for, I decided I would still tame it because maybe it would have better stats than Chewbacca, and maybe it would become the new male breeder. So, after finishing taming this male and setting his stats in his folders, me and One went out to finally find a female monkey. And we searched for a very, very long time, and we really didn't find anything good at all. Until finally we came across a female, and it was level 20. But I just decided to tame it and then breed the stats onto a breeding pair because I was really, really tired of looking for monkeys at this point. After absolutely violating this Sarco, we all arrived home together. I checked the fertilizer in my crop plot, and it was now time to breed. I needed more berries to raise any babies, so I decided to demolish all the structures I had to create another crop plot and get some more meho berries growing. So, on day 32, Harambe got to work and started the first of a very, very long breeding line. So, after waiting all night from day 32 and a pretty good chunk of day 33 waiting on the breeding and the gestation, we finally had a little baby Gigantopithecus.
There's got the bad health and the bad melee.
So, on day 33, Harambe got to work and started the first of a very, very long breeding line.
Times, so. Oh my god. Bro. Like it just like shot out. Alright, this one has the health stat. No, it doesn't have a melee, but it's a female, so I'll take it. That is the most cursed image I've ever seen.
On day 34, we managed to get twins. Unfortunately, they were both males. The new female with a good health stat was raised pretty shortly after, and now I had 2 females to breed. After tending to my berry crops, claiming some very mediocre mixed stat Gigantopithecus babies, and then eating some rare flowers for dinner and trying not to die while do so, day 34 came to an end. It was now day 35, and at this point, I had a bunch of Gigantopithecus females with the good melee and health, but I wanted everything to be the exact same level with the exact same of every stat. That way, I knew exactly when a mutation happened just by looking at the level and not having to claim it and look at the stats. So, I used these females for the meantime, but I was still working to get that perfect breeding pair. As day 36 went on, I continued breeding the Gigantopithecus, trying to get that perfect female. Unfortunately, every single time I got a perfect one, it was always a male. You can also probably tell how they're all pretty bloody. This is because I did not have very much food, I just have a few crops, and I have to keep going to Carno Island to kill stuff for extra berries. Basically, I'm feeding them the bare minimum, and they're kind of starving. They're pretty much all starving, but they're surviving, and that's what's important. It actually got so bad that I didn't want to waste berries on some of the full-grown ones, and I kind of made this little area over here. we're just going to call it the neglect zone. These ones no longer were going to receive any more support from the developers. We'll just say that. Look, I'm sorry, but you gotta do what you gotta do, okay? It's a video game. But anyway, at the end of day 36, I went out to kill some things to get some berries to feed the rest of my monkeys. And then on day 7, the monkeys that had the stats that I finally were looking for grew up. And I also had a male that did not have all the right stats that had a melee mutation. So now I could breed that onto a good male, and then I could already have my first melee mutation for the melee line. Oh, and the neglect zone was becoming very populated at this point. But anyway, by the end of day 37, I was starting to get low on food again, so I decided to create another crop plot with every last bit of resources that I had, and then I went to Carno Island to get as many berries as I possibly could while I was waiting on the next batch of monkeys to gestate. This process pretty much just kept repeating over and over, where I raised babies, then I killed all the bad ones, and then I kept the good ones, and then I just kept breeding over and over and over for mutations, and in between I kept going back and forth to Carno Island to kill a bunch of things for more berries, because I didn't have enough berries, and then all the adults just kept starving, and then all the babies kept barely getting raised, and then they ended up starving when they were adults, and it was just a constant cycle. So here's a quick little compilation recap, but it's basically just the same thing over and over and over for like the next 10 days. At this point, I had a bunch of perfect females, and I had a melee breeding line and a health mutation line going at the same time, which was pretty great because it kept my morale high and helped me to forget about all the atrocities that I've committed. And now I could easily know if there was a mutation because the level would be higher than all the other ones, and I didn't even have to claim the babies to notice. Good. On day 45, I got kind of tired of just doing the same thing over and over again, raising the babies, so I decided that I would go ahead and get the 3 artifacts for the broodmother fight. I decided to go to the lava cave first because it was the easiest one for me to get to, and I didn't really think that it would be too dangerous. So after me and Harambe spent the entire day 45 traveling, on day 46 I set up a bed right outside the lava cave, and Harambe showed his true courage as he carried me right inside without a single ounce of fear in his body.
Oh, there's bats. I forgot about that. I hate bats, bro. So there's like 2 different ways you can go about this. You can run by everything, or you can try to kill everything.
So I started out by trying to kite one bat at a time, but it turns out that they all are pretty good friends, so they all ganged up on me. So I'm not gonna lie, in retrospective, I really thought this was gonna go a lot better than it did. And yes, Harambe is very strong, but he's taking a ton of damage. Not having a saddle is a really bad thing. And I don't have imprint yet, so that is something, but I'm taking a lot of damage. As I started making my way through the cave, I realized that I don't remember where the artifact is. I haven't played this map in years.
I'm pretty sure it's this one.
I tried to run past all these bats, but then a spider got me, so I was forced to fight them. And once I got done with that fight, Harambe was really low on health. But I'm either really stubborn or I was really inspired by Harambe's courage because I continued forward anyway.
I hate bats. So look how many bats there are, bro. I really wish I had cryopods. I could just throw out a different monkey and cryo this one. Like, that'd be the move because I have infinite monkeys.
But unfortunately, I had no way of getting cryopods because I'm on 0 times rates. So I sat here for literally 20 minutes deliberating whether or not I wanted to take Harambe down there. And I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to leave him up here, let him heal, then move forward. But I decided I would just go on foot and see what I could figure out because I really didn't even know what was down there.
Oh, this isn't the way.
And this was the start of a very long series of very unfortunate events. I realized pretty quickly that I underestimated this cave. Oh no!
Okay, well, I get low-key kited everything away from the area I need to go to.
So, with a lot of the stuff kited out of the way, at least I think so, I spawned back at the bed and I headed right back in that cave. Luckily, most of the creatures in the cave have not respawned yet. And now that everything was pushed out of the way, I decided to go grab the artifact on foot to see what would happen.
Do you know which way I need to go, Nick? Because I do not. Oh, there it is.
Well, now the artifact was surrounded by bats. Like, seriously, what did I think was gonna happen right there? So, since my bed was still on cooldown, I had to spawn all the way over here in the swamp and run all the way back to the cave. And eventually, I made it back to Harambe. And this time, my goal was just to kite the bats past the artifact as far away as possible. That way, I could come back next time and easily get my body without having any bats in the way. And this plan worked really, really well. I actually went to the artifact and there was nothing there at all. So after almost falling in the lava and completely losing the artifact, I got killed by a bat that happened to respawn really close to Harambe. So after respawning way back in the swamp and running all the way back to the cave and coming all the way back to Harambe, I took Harambe down to kill the bat and then I picked back up the artifact. So now the artifact of the massive have been obtained, Harambe was safe, and it was time to bring him home. Oh no! But then this happened.
Are you serious, dude?
Bro, it didn't jump. I hit A and it didn't jump. And just like that, Harambe was with the big ape in the sky.
I don't know how to feel right now.
Rest in peace, my friend. You will be missed.
I mean, I guess it'll be good content. Bro, I hit A and he didn't jump. Man, I'm gonna have to switch to mouse and keyboard after that.
Unfortunately, there was really no way to get any of my stuff back, but luckily everything was still kited away, so I was able to run right back down, grab the artifact, and then come right back up without anything attacking me.
Imagine I fell again.
So once I got the artifact out of the cave, I didn't really want to go all the way across the map on foot and try to bring the artifact back to my base, so I just brought it to Greenob and just left it in the obelisk for now. I'll come back when we do the boss fight to use it. So I was now back home, but it felt really empty without Harambe. After tending to my crops, I went ahead and set markers on my map for the clever and hunter artifacts, that way I could go get those whenever I was ready. And after that whole cave fiasco, I realized that I really need more mutations, so it was time to get back to breeding. I was currently only at 1 mutation, because every single time I get a mutation, it's always in food or oxygen. My luck has been so bad, it's ridiculous. I continued breeding for mutations as normal, but then on day 49, I got a health mutation on the melee line, and instead of killing it, I decided to make it my new artifact gatherer. So this was Harambe Jr. So I made sure he got 100% imprint, and about a day later, he was fully grown, and I started leveling him up by killing the bad babies. The neglect zone was still being neglected, but then on day 51, something really stupid happened. I had unclaimed a bunch of monkeys I didn't want, and they had ran all the way over there. They were doing something, but apparently they were on neutral, and I accidentally hit a baby a little too close to them, and I guess that means they're in like the same tribe or something. And then Chewbacca was also on neutral, so he ran over there and started attacking the unclaimed monkeys. So I tried to go save him, but then in the process, Harambe Jr. somehow got mixed up in it.
No!
And then after that, they just didn't care about Chewbacca anymore, so he lived. But unfortunately, Harambe Jr. was no longer with us. I did happen to have a couple other monkeys with some health and melee mutations, so I couldn't use those for breeding. So we now had Harambe Jr. So I started using him to kill the unmutated babies, that way he would level up while I was breeding. I then decided to make some use of the monkeys that I was leaving in the neglect zone, and so I whistled them all to follow me, and I headed over to Carno Island to try to take out some alphas. The thing is though, they were so low food and so low health, they were literally starving as we speak while I was swimming to the island. Yeah, so it turns out taking a bunch of monkeys that are like on the cusp of dying to go kill an alpha doesn't really work out the greatest. But after the Carno took out all of my monkeys, I was able to finish him off with Harambe Jr. So Harambe Jr. was the only one that made it home, and then I started leveling up a backup just in case Harambe Jr. met the same demise as his two predecessors. On day 53, a red drop spawned all the way over in the snow, so I decided I would go a little bit further than normal to go grab it. And I'm really glad that I did, because
Pterodon saddle. Bro, now I can actually fly around the map. I might be able to get a lot of snowdrops now.
So after literally not moving a muscle for like 30 days, Terry finally got saddled up and took to the skies. Yeah, the drops pretty much still sucked. I got like a lot. I was doing this for days, but I'll just show a couple of the highlights, and they're really not even that good, to be honest. And then on day 55, after grabbing this purple drop, whenever I took back to the sky, I noticed something in the water. It was elite sick bees, the things that destroy your raft, but that's not what's important. I could actually scrape meat off of this thing, even though I'm on 0 times rates. This was pretty huge, because now I could tame carnivores if I wanted to.
So is this something that I can just do? What the heck? Yo, there's another one. Oh. Is there supposed to be 2 in the same spot?
So I brought this prime fish meat home, stored what I could in my preserving bin, and then fed the rest to Terry because he was kind of already starving just from flying around for supply drops. The entire day 56 was pretty much just spent grabbing supply drops while Terry starved to death. Day 57 was pretty much just spent breeding, except now it was Thanksgiving, so there were super turkeys running around and there was some beautiful colors on the wild dinos. Yeah, considering it's January right now, that probably gives you a pretty good idea of how long this video took to edit. The next few days were just spent breeding for mutations, and there's a 5% chance of a mutation, but every time I finally got that 5% chance, it was always in food and oxygen once again.
I'm getting a lot of mutations, but I haven't gotten a single one in what I want this entire time.
The supply drops were also not great, but luckily on day 60 I finally got another melee mutation. On day 61, right before I pressed record, Terry literally starved to death right in front of me. Stop looking at me like that, alright? Look, I'm on 0 harvesting rates. I can't get meat. But shortly after that, my luck actually started increasing and I got a new melee mutation. On day 62, I noticed that Harambe Jr. was finally healed up and he had full health. So after breeding the melee mutation onto a male, I was ready to head to the cave and get the next artifact. The better part of day 63 was spent just walking to the cave to get the artifact of the hunter. And once I arrived, I remembered that this was a really easy cave, so I opted not to put a bed down.
Oh, this is this cave. This is like the easiest cave in the entire map, except I have no idea where to actually go.
As I aimlessly wandered through the cave, I encountered very small packs of spiders, scorpions, and sometimes centipedes. For the most part, it was a really, really easy cave.
Oh my, yo! Look at how many bugs there are, bro.
And anywhere that there was a lot of enemies, Harambe made short work of them.
I'm just in a cave that I don't know where I am.
But literally 5 seconds after saying that, I found the artifact.
There's the artifact. Oh! There's snakes. Okay, well, I got the artifact.
Everything was going pretty smooth on the way back, but then somehow I fell in the water.
Oh! Whoa, what is that? Oh, sorry. That's scared.
Holy kill feed, bro, what is going on? I then decided to loot this cave drop, and it happened to be the worst drop I've ever seen in my entire life.
Apprentice slingshot?
So after that little detour, I finally made it out of the cave with the artifact of the hunter.
Alright, well, we now have 2 artifacts.
And it was time to go for the artifact of the clever. So I brought the artifact of the hunter to Greenaw because I didn't want to risk losing it, and then I set out for the artifact of the clever.
I honestly don't remember this cave at all. I'm not really sure what's in here.
So after a long walk and taking care of some annoyances, I finally made it to the cave, so I put a bed down and headed in. It didn't take long to discover that there were actually bats in this cave, which I hate those, but Harambe Jr. was a lot stronger than his deceased grandfather.
Bro, this is the most confusing cave of all time. If I go down there, how do I get back up? It's not my problem until 10 seconds later. Oh my, yo, that kind of scared me. Where did they come from?
And then I got a primitive Phiomia saddle out of a cave drop. But anyway, not far away from that water was the artifact. It was closely guarded by a lot of dangerous creatures though. So instead of fighting the creatures, I decided to use some of my MLG Pro skills and jump across this ledge and then ninja defuse the artifact. It was the greatest idea I've ever had.
Oh no. No!
So after showing off my IQ that rivals Albert Einstein, I decided to respawn at the bed and run back in to save Harambe and get my artifact back. But then the weird thing was, whenever I got back to my body, there was literally nothing there. Harambe Jr. was nowhere to be found, there were no bats, there was nothing. I didn't panic yet because, maybe they were all just going to throw me a surprise birthday party or something, but then I remembered that my birthday wasn't for 6 months. So now I started to get kind of scared. I checked literally everywhere. This clip is at 1,000 times speed. I literally ran circles and circles and circles, checking all the passageways in the water. I was just spamming follow. I couldn't find anything. This was literally for like 10 minutes. But then I heard something kind of suspicious, and whenever I got a little bit closer, I saw some kill feed.
Oh, he's in the water. Oh, no. No! Bro, are you serious?
Yep, that was literally the worst timing ever. I found him just in time to see him die.
No! Okay, I gotta get out of here now without dying. That's crazy, though, bro. Like, he must have been fighting them for so long. Why didn't I see his name? Or hear anything? Like, that's so stupid. And then once again, I've got to run all the way back to base.
So I made it back to base with the artifact, and then I got my backup monkey and renamed him from Backup to Harambe Jr.
So we got 1 health mutation and 3 melee mutations.
So on day 67, I started breeding again, and I decided that it was almost time to get my boss monkeys ready for the broodmother fight. So day 68 and day 69 passed as I bred for mutations. And as day 69 came to a close, I got my 2 best mutated monkeys together and started breeding some boss monkeys.
I gotta get 20 of these, then they have to heal. Forgot about the healing. That's gonna take a while.
But almost an hour into breeding for boss monkeys and I already had a few raising, I got another health mutation. So I decided I would go ahead and raise this and then restart my boss monkeys. And at this point, I had a bunch of different monkeys raised, and I had went to Carno Island all day killing stuff to get these berries, so now they just had to heal up and level up. So I spent the entire day 72, 1 entire hour straight, just killing baby monkeys with every single one of these boss monkeys until I got them all leveled up about 40 or 50 times. This pattern continued for the next few days, and I tried to get everybody's health to 10k and then the melee as high as I could. Then on day 78, after I took a nap, I rounded up all the boss monkeys that were not quite healed up yet, but they were getting close, and I whistled them all to follow me, and I set out for Greenknob. Alright boys, you ready to fight a giant spider? I'm not gonna lie, this trip was kind of annoying because they literally got stuck on everything. It sucks not having cryopods, man. Bro, how are you stuck on a rock? Thank you. Flying monkey. Swimming monkey. Nighttime monkey. And so at the start of day 79, I made it to Greenknob with all 20 of my boss monkeys. But they weren't quite healed up yet, so I had to wait a little longer for them to heal. Now they're healed. Thank you, editing.
Alright, it is officially time. Alright, they're all healed up. It is currently day 81, and it's time.
Despite how confident I seemed going into this arena, I was really nervous. I wasn't sure how these monkeys would be able to take on the broodmother without saddles, and I was really just kind of hoping for the best. When I loaded into the arena, I put all the monkeys on neutral because I thought that was probably the best way to just get them to attack the broodmother, but in hindsight, this really wasn't the best idea. This was actually the very first time I've ever done a boss fight by myself in ARK. And it wasn't long before putting all the monkeys on neutral started to backfire on me. They all started attacking the spiders that were all around the arena, and they weren't focusing the broodmother. Once I finally realized this, I put them on attack target and everything seemed to straighten out, but it seemed like the monkeys that were there in the middle took a lot of damage. So now we were doing a lot of damage and things looked good, but I was still really worried that I would die and lose everything. And just like that, everything was gone. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet, although that was a major setback and a big hit to my confidence. If I couldn't even take down the broodmother, how am I supposed to take down anything else, let alone the overseer cave?
Honestly, I'm not even sure what to do now. At least Harambe Jr. is still alive.
So on day 82, I started brainstorming. I needed to come up with a better idea. I really wanted to tame something with saddles because that would fix all my issues, but I really couldn't create saddles. They were way too expensive and it was already day 82, so starting a new breeding line, that would be kind of time consuming. I do know that Megatheriums can take down the broodmother really easily, but they'd be kind of a waste for any of the other bosses. But then I came up with a good idea. I could tame a Yudi. I don't know why I never thought of this before. Initially, I thought it was out of the question because it takes meat to tame, but now that I found the legged sick bees in the ocean, I could scrape the meat off and tame one. On day 83, I headed to Carno Island because I needed some berries. But then whenever I started attacking this alpha raptor, I figured out that my Gigantopithecus have so much knockback that they can knock back these alphas and kill them without ever getting hit. I don't know how I didn't figure this out before. So I decided to stay at Carno Island and kill some more alphas because they actually can drop crossbows. I could get a good crossbow, which would save me so many trank arrows.
Ooh. Okay, I should have been doing this the whole time. 182% damage. That basically cuts my trinks in half.
So after being at Carno Island for the entire day 83, I got home and I had 61 trank arrows and a really nice crossbow. And then at the start of day 84, I headed to the snow to find a Yudi. I looked around for a while, but I couldn't find any good levels. Okay, so at this point, I had ended my recording to go eat, and I came back and I forgot to start my recording.
So, I'm taming this Yudi here. Apparently, I wasn't recording.
Yeah, I really apologize for not getting that recorded, guys. Sorry, I'm still new to this, but I'm going to reenact what happened right here.
There was a lead right here. I basically stood on this ledge right here, shot it with a normal arrow. It was like right there. I just kept shooting it with tranks until it eventually ran, so I started chasing it, shooting at it. I came up here and got it stuck pretty much just like this. This is like a perfect reenactment. Then it started running that way, and I started chasing it and shooting it until eventually I knocked it out. And it took like 50 tranks because I have this amazing crossbow. So there was a lot of things that tried to kill me on the way.
And then basically from there, I got meat from the lead that I mentioned earlier, and I used that fish meat to tame this Yudi. And that's where I am now. So while I was waiting for it to tame, I did a little bit more breeding to try to get some more mutations, and eventually at the end of day 85, the Yudi was finally tamed. Nice. The taming effectiveness and the stats on this were not that great, but that didn't matter because all I needed the Yudi for was its roar buff so I could buff the Gigantopithecus and make them take less damage. So when I finally got the Yudi back to base, I bred a bunch of Gigantopithecus and then put the babies on passive and unclaimed them. That way the Yudi could attack them to level up, since I can't ride it when I don't have a saddle. And then after her very incessant roars, I decided to name her something appropriate. Now that I had the Yudi, I was ready to go double or nothing with the broodmother. So on day 86, I raised some more boss monkeys and bred for mutations.
Last time I did 10,000 health and then I pumped melee. This time I kind of want to do more health. But at the same time, if I just did more melee and I killed it quicker, maybe that would work.
So since we've already been through me getting boss monkeys before, I'll skip over most of this, but I got another melee mutation.
Oh, a melee mutation.
And this time, I decided to go even more levels than I did last time, so I really spent a lot of effort on leveling these things up.
Maybe Harambe Jr. won't die this time.
So on day 89, I had most of my boss monkeys raised, and a lot of them were leveled a little bit, but there was still a lot of leveling to go. Can I get some help here, please?
So I kind of want to try to tame a Megatherium before I go for these artifacts.
So after killing more stuff at Carno Island for more trank arrows, I got my stuff together on day 90 and went to tame a Megatherium. After searching for a while, I finally found one over here right outside the snow, and honestly the Megatherium really didn't make that much of a difference, so you're going to see the next 20 minutes of work in about 20 seconds. So after some technical difficulties, the Megatherium was down, and shortly after that, by shortly I mean like an hour, it was tamed. So after bringing him back to base, leveling him up a little bit, and then leveling up more of my boss monkeys, it was finally time to get the artifacts again. Honestly, this time around, everything went really smooth because I already knew where everything was and my monkey actually had imprint this time. However, whenever I got to this point in the lava cave, it brought back some emotional trauma and I almost broke down into tears. I made extra careful not to fall as I jumped across this gap, and then I easily grabbed the artifact and headed out. After paying my respects to the original Harambe that now had about 4,000 grandchildren, I headed out of the cave. I hope this slingshot finds you well, my friend. As day 92 came to a close, I demolished my bed for the hide and headed to the next cave. There's not much to say about this one as it was easy last time and it was even easier this time. The final cave was a little bit more tough as Harambe Jr. was a little bit lower on health because of all the other fights he's done, and there was a lot of centipedes and stuff in here, but overall it went pretty well. So now that I had all the artifacts, I removed the markers from my map and I started leveling up the boss monkeys a lot more while I was waiting on them to heal up. And then about midway through day 98, I whistled all my boss monkeys to follow me, and I headed straight back to Green Obelisk to get revenge on the broodmother. The clock was ticking though, and this was my last chance to prove that I could actually do this. So this time around, I had all my monkeys ready, and I whistled them straight underneath the broodmother. I wanted to make sure that they spaced out this time and they could all actually hit her. But it wasn't long before I realized I made a massive mistake. The Yudi should not be fighting the broodmother head on. And despite giving her twice the health that I gave all the monkeys, Katy Perry died literally 15 seconds into the arena. But despite that huge mistake, the monkeys were leveled a lot more than last time and they were handling this really well. I just wish Katy Perry would have got one more on.
The Yudi not being here hurts bad. I don't understand how he died so fast. He had 20,000 health. The monkeys only had 10,000. I just have no clue how they died so fast.
And then my boss monkeys started to slowly die off. This was going to be really close.
Dude, it's so close.
And now it was just me and the broodmother, and she was so close.
1v1. 1v1 me, bro. Oh, it's so close.
Come on. No! Not every story has a happy ending, but it was not over, and I was going to make sure that this story ended on my terms.
Yo, hold up. I'm actually about to see something.
I did a quick Google search to see if you could restore any previous versions of your save file, and I found this Reddit thread that explained how to, so I did exactly what they said, and I actually was able to get my file from day 92. Yeah, so apparently day 92 was the last time I had a backup save, so I'm just going to skip this like 6 hours of work. You don't have to see this, but just know I leveled them up a lot more than I did last time, and I came prepared with a better strategy for the broodmother fight. So as you can see, this time I actually enabled auto courage on the Yudi, and then I made sure that the Yudi stayed back with me while I whistled the rest of the Gigantopithecus to attack. I stayed back here, my DPS and the Yudi's DPS weren't in the fight, but this was for the better because the Yudi gives a roar buff that gives everybody a 20% buff, and they take 20% less damage, so this is huge. I was also able to put the Gigantopithecus and the Yudi on 2 separate tame order groups. That way when I switched to the Gigantopithecus group, I could shoot my crossbow at what I wanted them to target. So I could just keep shooting the broodmother to make them focus that, but if there was any individual spiders that I needed them to attack, I could just go to that as well. So I had a lot more organization in this fight basically. Oh, and the Megatherium was also on neutral, which means it was attacking the normal spiders a lot more, so the Gigantopithecus did not have to worry about them as much. This strategy was actually so strong that I genuinely think we could have done the beta spider. Having a Yudi makes so much of a difference.
We'll see. I don't know what their belts do. Like, they might always die.
And just like that, I had achieved what I thought to be impossible, defeating the broodmother on 0 times harvesting rates. But it wasn't over just yet. I still have 3 more bosses to take down, and I have until day 200 to make it happen. I promise that you'll get to see my master plan soon enough, but first order of business, we have to take down Harambe's grandfather, Megapithecus. Harambe can never know. But anyways, to take down the monkey, I need all the artifacts, so I marked them on my map and I headed to the Carno Island cave to get the artifact of the Devourer. This cave was actually really easy, but there was a ton of bats and I was so scared that they were going to give me mega rabies. Don't really want to die today. I also heard that there were really good drops in this cave. Or maybe not. And then I came across this Megalania that quite literally was above the law of gravity. But anyway, me and Harambe made our way through the cave, swatting bats down like they're flies, and yeah, it was pretty easy. Artifact of the Devourer? Check. But anyways, I made it out of the cave with a sliver of health, and then day 102 began. So I Control-Alt-Deleted a Alpha Carno, and I headed back to base. With the easy artifact out of the way, it was time to implement phase 1 of my plan. I used every ounce of fiber I've gotten so far to craft a fishing rod and a chair. Because, I mean, come on, what am I going to do? Fish standing up? So, if you're not aware, when you go fishing in ARK, and not like this, but with an actual fishing rod, you can reel in resources. Just try not to question why the fish has a metal ingot. The goal is to get enough metal and crystal through fishing so I can make a singular cryopod, and I can get my tames into these artifact caves. So after casually stealing the entire life's work of a beehive, I headed back to my local lake and I went fishing for the very first time in my 5,000 hours on this game. Bro, that was the furthest cast of all time. So catching a singular fish took a lot longer than I thought. It took over a minute just for this fish to bite the line. But when he finally bit, I got the privilege of playing this little mini game, and well, it's definitely one of the games of all time. So I went ahead and used up my honey and caught a few more fish. And after this fish just disintegrated into thin air and a bunch of amazing resources just came through the shadow realm, I realized I was actually getting meat from this, and I could potentially tame a carnivore. After I returned back to base, I demolished all of the wood structures that I had got out of supply drops because I needed some more fiber to make more fishing rods. After tending to some things around the base, I headed back to that beehive, and I decided I wanted to try to tame the queen bee because then I would have like infinite honey. So I started shooting it from a distance to see if she would come out. And then after shooting about 90 arrows and breaking half my Mastercraft crossbow, there was no queen bee in the beehive. Did I just get scammed? Well, I'm definitely not trying that again, so I looted a beehive and then I took my frustrations out on this innocent trike, and then I headed to a swampy river because I wanted to try to catch some saber-toothed salmon. In retrospect, I don't really know what I was thinking. This is kind of like one of the worst places to possibly look for fish. But anyway, my first honey disintegrated because I got jumped by a pack of raptors, and then I had to keep moving my chair around because there was like a total of 3 fish in this entire river. I did actually manage to catch a couple salmon though, and the loot is really good, but I'm on the search for a new fishing spot. So after that, I grabbed more honey and I headed back to the other lake because I don't really need all the good loot from the salmon. I literally just want metal and crystal.
'Cause we will still be high when the lights out.
And then after an hour and a half of fishing, I finally had enough crystal to make 1 cryopod. All of that work for 1 cryopod. It might not seem like much, but having a cryopod allows me to bring my tames through the crouch spots and caves. So it literally would be impossible to beat these caves without a cryopod. So now that I had a cryopod, my next goal was to tame a Diplocaulis because I needed to be able to breathe underwater in some of these caves. And they have these air sacs that you can suck the air in and breathe under the water so you don't drown. Yeah. But then on my way to the swamp to tame one, I came across this absolutely massive salmon. So just like I do in my real life fishing trips, I put my chair right next to the salmon and then I dropped an entire jar of honey right next to his face. Try not to be too impressed. Yet somehow I managed to find an even bigger one, but then this happened. No! What? I was gonna say something, but I don't want to get demonetized. Anyway, I caught the last salmon in the river, and then I headed to the swamp, and then Harambe suplexed this Sarco into outer space. And right next to that Sarco was a Diplo, but he was really low health, and I didn't want to waste trank arrows if he was gonna die, so I went to look for another one. But it turns out that these things are extremely rare because everything in the swamp wants to kill them, and they just constantly get spawn trapped. I looked for a really long time, and I didn't find anything except for like 35 capros that wanted to murder me. I can understand why new players don't like this game. Watches me get murdered and doesn't even care. Harambe, dude, what are you doing? But after running all the way through the swamp and then turning around and coming halfway back, I finally found a Diplo and I quickly knocked it out. And then I just kind of had to sit here and watch over it because I'm in a swamp surrounded by a bunch of murderous psychopaths. But after about 30 minutes, the Diplo was finally tamed, so I put him in my Pokeball and I headed over to the next cave. Not long after entering the cave, I realized that I was literally freezing to death and there was no way I was surviving in here. So I brainstormed some ways that I could protect myself from the cold without crafting, and I think I have to tame an otter. So I looked up where otters spawn, and it's in this little river right here. So I wasted no time, and now Harambe gets to go for a swim. But anyway, it took a while, but eventually I found an otter. It was kind of a low level, but I went ahead and tamed it, and then I kept looking for more. The next otter came out at level 74, which is not great, but I think the insulation should be high enough. Then on the way home, I decided to gamble my life and steal this 400-pound Bronto egg. Needless to say, the Brontos weren't very happy. Yeah, they still haven't stopped chasing me. But anyways, when I got back to base, I had to level my otter up as much as possible because otters actually insulate you and it scales off their melee damage stat. So I've got to pump that as much as possible. So I went back to my monkey breeders and we're going to give the otters some combat training by using baby monkeys as target practice. While that was happening, I decided to test out the NaturalCauzes a little bit and kind of see how he performed in the water. Yo, this thing is fast, bro. I was able to get his oxygen to 3k, and keep in mind, this is my oxygen while I'm riding him. So I should be able to clear any cave with that, and then I just pumped his movement speed because if he gets hit by anything, he's dead. He's super squishy. Anyway, the metal was finally cooked, and I crafted a smithy. Yes, it literally took me 109 days to make a smithy. Anyway, now all the monkeys were born, so I claimed them all, put them all on passive, so they won't run away. And then I unclaimed them all, and, well, we all know what happens next. And then I bred one more round of monkeys because the NaturalCauzes needed some levels too. Okay, maybe I did it one more time after that. Now that I finally had a leveled up otter, I headed back to that cave and I passed some salmon in the river on the way, so... And then on day 110, I entered the cave to grab the second artifact. Now that I wasn't worried about being cold, this cave was actually really easy. There was just a bunch of bats and bugs and stuff. And then eventually I came to this kind of like midsection where there was just water everywhere and there was like 4 different ways I could go. So I didn't really know where to go, but I kind of explored around for a little while. And then after exterminating about 45 piranhas several times, I did have my Diplo with me in case I needed the oxygen, but I decided to try going through the tunnels on the monkey. And it turns out they're really not that long, so I could actually just use the monkey. But while I was under the water, it actually was really cold, so I decided to go ahead and place down the bed that I brought just in case I froze to death. Spoiler alert, this did happen a couple times. But eventually, after kind of figuring out where everything actually was, I got to watch Harambe suplex another Sarco, and then I easily grabbed the artifact and headed out of there. After leaving the cave, I fished some more, what a surprise. Found another useless drop, and then fished some more. Then I headed back to base, and I threw everything on the already overweight one the Iguanodon because I don't have any storage space. Sorry, buddy. But then I realized that all my boss monkeys are starving again. Apparently they're not satisfied with their rations of 10 berries a day, or something like that. So then I harvested my crops of every berry they've grown for the last like 10 days, and I was able to give all the monkeys like 20 berry rations or something like that, and they're still starving, but I mean, at least they're not dead. But I knew that if I didn't do something, this was just gonna keep happening every day. So I swam over to Carno Island and I looted this insultingly bad drop, and then I killed a bunch of the carnivores so I could loot their berries. Huh, that's ironic. When I made it back to base, I added another 50 pounds to one the Iguanodon. Sorry, buddy. And then I set out to the underwater cave, which I was terrified of. That's why I saved it until last, to be honest. but if I get this artifact, I'm ready to fight the Megapithecus. When I arrived above the cave, because of how worried I was that this might be their last swim, I had to make sure to give the Diplo and the Otter a very appropriate name, because if it is their last swim, I want them to go out with some dignity, of course.
Alright, Harambe, you're going in the Pokeball.
So after putting Harambe into a Pokeball, me, Robert Nodrani Jr., and Harry Otter all swam down to the abyss and headed into the underwater cave. I made it through the first underwater corridor surprisingly easy, and I quickly got to this above water part. I was really happy about that until I realized that it was tiny, and the only thing here was a very high level trilobite.
A 270 trilobite? I should have brought my fishing rod.
So, very reluctantly, I had to go back into the water, but then I realized that I was actually at the end of the cave already. The artifact was right there. And then me and Robert had to high lizard tail it out of there because we had a 5-star rating with the Megalocops, and that will definitely not do. Honestly, I don't really know what I was worried about. Everything felt too easy. I kept thinking something bad was gonna happen, but it never did. On the way back to base, I Control-Alt-Deleted a Carno, and then we had a family meeting with the Harambes to discuss how exactly we're going to take down his grandfather. With the amount of time everything takes to do on 0 times raids, I cannot afford to mess this up.
It's going to be so cold in there, I might need to bring Harry Otter with me. He really wants to go. Look at him.
I then placed down a cooking pot because I do plan on trying to make med brews a little bit later. I then decided to go ahead and reorganize my base because the Iguanodon is suffocating in 900 pounds of weight right now. Okay, that's not why. It's because I can't find anything. It's really bad. Okay, quick recap. Resources in Smithy, pretty much just beaver dams. So, yeah. Bunch of armor here from drops and a bunch of hats for monkeys that break in 2 hits. Tools are here. Blueprints that have a 99% chance of not getting used are here. Saddles and structures from supply drops are here. Boss fight and fishing stuff is all in the mortar and pestle, and then this low level monkey has just a bunch of random other stuff in him. So, yeah. So, I wanted to make a few med brews just in case it was a little bit too cold in the boss fight. So, I placed down a crop plot that I got from a drop, and then I headed to Carno Island and I sent a message. These carnivores will cower in fear at the even mention of the name Harambe, no matter how many juniors is behind it. And then, after an entire day of grinding Tinto berries, I was able to amass a massive number of 7 medical brews. I know, very impressive, but please calm down. And now the time has come. So I put Katy Perry in a Pokeball, and then I accidentally threw her out and then put her back in a Pokeball again. And then I gave everybody their 3 berry rations and a promise that they'll get up to 5 if they survive today. Destination, Blue Obelisk on Snow Mountain. This journey was like the most annoying thing ever because I didn't have any more cryopods for the monkeys, so there's just 18 monkeys with horrible pathfinding following me. They get stuck on the tiniest pebble, and then on top of that there's like dangerous creatures everywhere that want to murder me. Oh, and it's also a literal mountain, so I can't just climb it. I have to go around this trail all the way around the side. After a little over an hour of travel, me and the monkeys and Harry Otter and Katy Perry all made it to Blue Obelisk, and it was time to take down Harambe's grandfather. Going into this fight, I was pretty confident, but a part of me was worried at the same time. As I entered the arena, I put Katy Perry on auto roar, and I made sure that she was on passive and all the monkeys were on attack my target. Since I didn't have a Yudi saddle, I put Katy Perry on follow, that way she wouldn't get attacked by any of the monkeys, and I used my crossbow to try to tell my monkeys what target to attack. that was easy.
After that massive victory over their grandfather, the Harambe celebrated with some bananas, and now it was time to go home.
That's at least like 40 broken legs right there. Everything was going great on the way home until this Yudi decided to roar, and all of the monkeys that just defeated a literal boss got scared and ran everywhere. I couldn't find 2 of them, so we're down 2 monkeys now.
After arriving back at base,
Nice. I put everything up, and then I took the 1 monkey that actually had health, and I went to grab the first artifact to take down my mortal enemy, Doug. The cave was really narrow in most places, and Harambe was a little bit too large to fit inside, so I had to do most of it on foot, and it really was like a maze. I couldn't find where I was supposed to go, but the bats and insects were pretty easy to take down in the areas where I could throw out Harambe. But eventually, I finally found the artifact, and then I realized that I came from the wrong side. I don't have grapples. But after getting jumped by a giant spider, I eventually found the artifact, but I wasn't able to throw Harambe out at the top. And then a spider trapped me from behind, and then this happened. What? No! Harambe! Nope, that's it. You're done. Come here, buddy. And despite taking out my anger, committing mass spider genocide, nothing could fill the void that was created when Harambe fell into the void. I am just happy that I survived that, to be honest.
as I exited the cave, the rage mode adrenaline high was leaving my body, and I could feel my eyes getting really heavy as the spider toxin kicked in.
I was so tired that I had to take a nap right then and there. I just passed out on the negative 80-degree snow. In fact, this sleep was so important to me that I continued to sleep while an Argentavis tried to eat my unconscious body. But luckily the Argentavis has a horrible turn radius, so he couldn't touch me for 8 hours while I got a good night's rest.
And then I jumped into the cold water of death to save Harry Otter, who conveniently landed on an iceberg. I then met a bunch of penguins while I was waiting on this yellow drop to come down, and man, let me tell you, these penguins, they were having the time of their life.
So let us dance this night away.
Well, that was disappointing. So I had to swim home, and the water was exceptionally cold. I'm literally going to die. All the things I've been through, and this is how it ends. So Robert offered to escort me to get my stuff back, which was a very generous gesture by Robert, but it was so cold that I ended up dying and wasting a sleeping bag, and I also ate through a bunch of medical brews that I could not afford to use, to be honest. But I eventually got my stuff back. Okay, we're good. And now the first artifact was down, but I still had 3 more to go before I could take down Doug. Since I was already in the snow, I headed straight from that cave to the strong artifact cave, which is also in the snow, but is much, much harder. After heading into the cave though, and taking note of an amazing fishing spot, I realized that it was extremely cold in here, so I turned around before even making it past the entrance. So I headed back to base, and then I realized that I really can't do much about my armor, so I guess I'm just gonna have to level up the otter. Get him, buddy. But that alone won't be enough, so I need to make as many bed brews as possible. It's time to farm some Tinto berries. I actually headed into the Carno Island cave, and I decided to tame one of these absolutely disgusting specimens because they can create me some fertilizer, and then I can grow more Tinto berries. So I force-fed myself and the gorilla a bunch of stem berries, and then I ran in circles to burn all my energy, so, you know. So now I finally had myself a dung beetle. This is my squad right here. And a very, very upset stomach. So apparently you can't carry a dung beetle while you're underwater, so I had to put him in the cryopod, and then whenever I arrived home, I loaded him up with some of his favorite food, and then I gave him a very appropriate name. Yes, that's the best name I've ever seen. But anyways, now it was time to get back to the task, and let's try to get that artifact. Harambe Jr. was still pretty low on health, and his predecessor is unavailable at the moment. So I decided to rename one of the boss monkeys. Harambe Jr. So now I had a leveled up otter, and I had a bed to put in the middle of the cave, but I still didn't have enough med brews, so I grabbed one of the blood extraction syringes and proceeded to extract every ounce of blood in my body. Basically, I did this all day, and I died multiple times. But eventually, I had amassed 34 pints of blood, so I stuck them all in my pocket, and I headed to the ice cave. So, a bit of foreshadowing here, spoiler alert. This cave is difficult, but on 0 times rates, this cave is nearly impossible. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm not even joking. This is the hardest thing that I have ever done in 5,000 hours on ARK. Well, maybe not hardest, maybe most annoying is the right way to phrase this, but honestly, I could rant about this all day. Not any part of this was fun, but it'll probably be fun for you to watch me suffer, so yeah. So I think it was because I came in this cave earlier, but there was nothing around the entrance. It was kind of all despawned. But once I got about a quarter of the way into the cave, I found some dinos, and they do a ton of damage. And on top of that, even though I wasn't cold in the entrance, apparently the deeper you go into the cave, the colder it gets. This combination of increasing cold and increasingly strong dinos, not cool. So on day 120, about a quarter into the cave, I decided to go ahead and put down a bed, and I had the first of very, very many deaths from the cold. Let's keep count of this. So I managed to scale this little cliff, and I skipped like a big section with a bunch of dinos, and then I got a terrible cave drop, and then I got attacked by this polar bear. This polar bear right here was the exact moment that I realized what I had gotten myself into. This thing was taking forever to kill, it was doing more damage than Harambe, and I was dying of the cold faster than I could even kill one thing in this cave. Level 300? Basically, I had to keep returning to my bed like every 1 to 2 minutes as I was fighting stuff, because I would freeze to death, and I gotta make sure that I don't do that next to enemies. And to make things worse, he's only fought like 3 things, but Harambe was already low health. You do not look very good. So still having barely made it through the entrance of the cave, I took out my backup monkey and I started shooting things with crossbows when I could. Because at this rate, I would literally run out of monkeys and still wouldn't even be halfway through the cave. Usually after I shot them a few times, they would start running away because the AI can't pathfind to actually hit me. But then they don't actually fight back. They just keep running, and then I can take them down with Harambe. It didn't always work, but when it did, it got abused. So I was able to take out a few more things before I froze to death again. And then I realized that I should probably be blocking these spawns so they don't just spawn back every time I die. So I spawned back at base, and then I used my entire life savings from the first 100 days to craft a few wooden foundations and another bed. But then when I entered the cave, apparently stuff spawned in the entrance. Oh! So I essentially had to spawn at the bed that I had in the cave and then run backwards through the cave with nothing on me and keep kiting all the dinosaurs away from the path. And then I would die and have to wait 5 minutes for the cooldown, and then I would run a little bit further, kite another one, and then wait 5 minutes. And eventually I got everything out of the way. If I can run over there without anything attacking me, then we're clear. So then I could take my monkey back to the entrance and get my stuff. Oh, this is horrible, man. And then as I made my way back through the cave, I placed foundations to block the spawns from the path. There's a ton of stuff over there. There's a massive amount of stuff over there, so I'm not going to block those spawns. I'm just going to stay away from that. So after pretty much making it back to my bed, I had to turn back around and head back to base to make more foundations. And I used the entirety of my fiber. Fiber is ironically my limiting resource for most things because I can get wood from beaver dams, but fiber I pretty much only get when I'm fishing or from demolishing structures. So anyway, I finally made it back to the cave, and this walk back and forth takes like 15 minutes one way. Keep in mind, I started this cave on day 120. So now I finally made it back to my bed, and of course everything was spawned back past it, so I tried to shoot them again, but then... Jeez, he's doing a lot of damage. So yeah, just the one polar bear took down a quarter of Harambe's health. Oh, and I was still dying every 60 seconds or so. Good times. But luckily they got glitched out again, and honestly without this glitch I would still be stuck in that cave. So then I finally made it to the next big section of the cave. Definitely don't like that. But I was low health, so I had to turn around and go respawn first. I killed everything that aggroed onto me, and then I finally made it back, and I was able to block this spawn, but I was already below half health. That's how cold it was in here. So I had to go back and die again. And this time I kind of speed ran over there, and then I stuck to this ledge on the right side. I was able to jump across this gap, and I got an ankle breaker on this Perlovia. And I also stayed out of the way of like 15 other mobs, which was amazing. And then I stealth killed this Yeti. Get wrecked. I don't know how I'm gonna get back, but that's a problem for future me. And at this point, I was running low on health again, so I was getting ready to put my next bed down. But then I realized that the foundation was insulating me? What? I'm not dying right now. That's why. So I can stand here and heal. Dude, that's awesome. So yeah, I sat here in my insulated house until I was healed. So after sitting there for like 20 minutes, I finally headed out, and then this happened. Oh, and despite my best efforts, there was no possible way I was gonna kill all that stuff in time before I died, so I still had to use the bed right here, and basically that 20 minutes of me waiting to heal was just a complete waste of time. But anyways, in this section, basically I could survive like 30 seconds to a minute before dying from the cold, and everything that I fought with Harambe did more damage than me, so I kind of had to shoot most things and stay out of the way of most things. The next few days were very cold, very long, and death. Here for like 2 hours. And now all my monkeys are currently experiencing a near-death experience, so I had to head back to base to get more and make some more foundations. But then when I got back to base, I realized that since I've been gone for like 2 hours, all of my monkeys are starving. So I rationed out all my berries, and now they are still starving, but they're not gonna die. And then I cryoed one of the boss monkeys, demolished a bunch of wood structures. That way I could make some more foundations, and then I headed back to the cave that was slowly making me lose my sanity. On my way back through the cave drops were actually spawning now. I don't really know why they weren't before, but I got a Mastercraft Giga Saddle. Probably won't use that, good thanks anyway. Time for more death and genocide. No, stay down. Bro. World record mech. And then as I approached the end of the 4th day in this cave, I came to this section where there was a ton of stuff that wanted to kill me all in one spot. I had nowhere to shoot it from, and there was no way I was going to be able to kill it all with Harambe. So I kind of sat here stumped for a while trying to come up with a plan, but then it hit me. I could kite everything into the water because there's a ledge there and they wouldn't be able to get back up. The main issue was that this section of the cave, it was so cold that I could literally only survive for like 15 to 20 seconds without any armor on, and everything kills me in one hit. So yeah, lots of pain. And also a lot of patience, which I currently have a shortage of. I literally have to sit here and wait for the wolves to finish howling before they'll chase me into the water. No way. Yo, I'm not cold. I'm not cold. So I had finally got the artifact, and it only costed me like 50 deaths and 4 hours of my life. And then a superhuman Prolovia phased through the floor to try to kill me, but I was too quick. Enjoy the negative 200-degree water, buddy. At this point, I was so relieved that I finally got this artifact. I thought I wasn't going to be able to do it and that I would have to scrap the video. Harambe can do anything. But anyway, I got out of that absolutely dreadful place as fast as I possibly could, and then me and the 3 Harambes headed back to base. When I finally made it back to base, I found a dodo, and he was wearing an adorable little party hat, so of course I had to tame him. But then I then realized that everything was starving, so I probably needed to get some more berries, and I also wanted to get more tinto berries to make med brews for the dragon fight. So I headed to Carno Island, and I started farming some berries for the med brews and for the food, but apparently Harambe must have been on strike or something because I haven't fed him in like 3 days. And he decided to only eat the tinto berries, just leaving everything else and eating every single tinto berry that I farmed. Like, okay Harambe, fair enough. You're sabotaging because you're hungry. I don't know what to tell you. I'm on 0 times rates. You have to be too. Life ain't fair. But anyways, after making it back to base and feeding my monkeys, I wanted to go fishing again, but I was out of fiber. So I had to go get a bunch of supply drops to get some structures to demolish so I could have enough fiber to make the fishing rod. And I placed down one of the crop plots I got out of a drop so I could have a little bit more tinto berries growing since Harambe ate them all. And then on day 131, I grabbed a massive amount of honey that I just collected while grabbing drops, put on all of my cold resistant armor, and I headed back to my worst nightmare. When I said that this would be a good fishing spot, I meant it. All of this is useless. So that was like an hour and a half of fishing, but I actually got a ton of stuff. So after running out of honey, I decided that I needed to demolish the wooden foundations that I left in the cave because I was out of fiber again, but I definitely did not want to have to come back through this cave. So I ran all the way to the end, grabbed the artifact, put it in a storage box. Then I ran all the way through the cave again. This dude destroyed my bed. That's 20 hide. I also found this. Grabbed the artifact again, and then I demolished all the foundations for fiber on my way out. So now I have 2 backup artifacts, just in case. I am never coming in this cave again. After making it back to base, I put everything up. I made a refining forge and started cooking the metal that I had. and I didn't waste much time before grabbing some more honey and going fishing at the lake again, because I need enough materials to make a fabricator, so then I can make a gas mask and I can breathe in the sweet fumes of the swamp cave. So after I finished bartering with the fishes and trading all my honey for metal, I made it back to base. I crafted a fabricator, and the really nice thing is that I got absorbent substrate from the fishes somehow. So I actually don't need a chem bench because the gas mask is made in the fabricator, even though you do need a chem bench for absorbent substrate. So yeah, I did happen to spend all my crystal on the fabricator though, so if I want to make this gas mask, I'm gonna have to go fishing again. So now I finally had enough crystal, and it only took like 2 days. And after I made it back to base, I realized that I didn't have Reese's Feces on wandering, so he wasn't making any fertilizer. But I don't want him running around everywhere, so... Yes, I did just waste all my fiber on that. I'm sorry, buddy. And then I ate a rare flower, which absolutely triggered this pterodon. Yo, chill out! So Harambe sent him to the Shadow Realm. That's very unfortunate. And then I kind of just left him there as a warning. I then spent a while waiting on the dung beetle, looking for deep sea loot crates, and I didn't find anything. But when I came back, the dung beetle was finally done making some fertilizer, and more importantly, oil. Now I can make the gas mask. So I grabbed a bunch of ghillie armor, I reluctantly spent a ton of metal on a grappling hook, and then I headed to the swamp cave to get the last artifact needed to fight Doug. But on my way there, this Prolovia and a Pego perfectly executed a heist to literally steal my pants. And Harambe just let it happen.
They're gonna break my armor, Harambe.
But after being mugged and betrayed, Harambe finally decided what side he was actually on, and I got my pants back. And then after almost losing my pants again, I finally made it to the swamp cave. I put on my gas mask, and then I threw out Harambe Jr., and I whistled him to go in first. Of course, he obliged, because Harambe is very, very brave. I was mainly just worried about an Arthro one-shotting my gas mask and then me suffocating right there on the spot. So I made sure that Harambe always went into each area first, and made sure it was safe for my little human lungs, because apparently only humans can suffocate. And everything went pretty well. Harambe took out the Arthros while I watched from afar. But then I accidentally held the left trigger to look in the spyglass, and then Harambe just yeeted me straight at the Arthro. I almost had a heart attack right there, I'm not gonna lie. And at this point, Harambe Jr. was really low health, so I switched him out for Harambe Jr., and I whistled him on. This next section right here, though, was pretty insane. There were so many bugs in there, and Harambe was getting absolutely destroyed. I really wanted to do something, but there were Arthros in there, and if they shot me, I was gonna die and lose everything. And so I just had to watch it happen. But now with Harambe gone, I would have to actually walk in there and face the Arthros. I tried to be as sneaky as possible and stick to the right side, and by some ARK AI targeting miracle bug, they actually didn't see me. So yeah, honestly, if they would have saw me, I was dead. So if you've never actually done this, in this cave there's a little hole right here. So I was actually able to grappling hook up there and skip like half the cave. So I grabbed the artifact, jumped back out into the water, and I got out of there. But of course, nothing can ever be that easy. So on the way home, I got jumped by a Thyla. Oh no. Well, there goes my ghillie. And then after spending the whole night running back to base, I demolished a bunch of structures from supply drops because I had a fiber shortage again, so I could make a sleeping bag and head to the next cave. This cave was one of the most difficult caves on this map. It's underwater, and there was pretty much every sea creature you can imagine. Honestly, this cave was terrifying. There was like alpha megalodons, mosasaurs, tusos, everything you can imagine. And the entire time I was in here, I literally just kept saying, but you can't hear it because the audio was messed up, so I didn't include it, sorry. But yeah, I said it like 35 times. But yeah, surprisingly, I was able to make it to the end of the cave, and I didn't get hit by anything. So Yeah, I was now on land. I threw out Harambe. We ran for probably 10 minutes, killing a bunch of bats and scorpions and other bugs and stuff. And then I realized that there's nothing over here.
Bro, where's the artifact?
This entire section exists for no reason, I guess. And the artifact is underwater near the beginning of the cave. I would like to speak to the manager, please. But anyways, I tried to find the tunnel where the artifact is on my way out, but I couldn't find anything. And then before I knew it, I was already back at the entrance of the cave, and then this electric eel almost sent Robert into cardiac arrest. But luckily, I was able to get us back to the surface, and Robert did not get cooked up into an aquatic bacon dinner. So we're all good. So I usually try to do everything from memory without looking anything up, but here I actually did look up the artifact location. It's completely underwater in this tunnel, so I have to dismount underwater while everything's chasing me, and then go back the way I came that the stuff is chasing me from. So I actually am pretty confident that I might die. And as soon as I made it into the tunnel, Robert immediately got tasered by an eel. No, Robert, run! And as soon as it let me get back up to full speed, I was gone. So I put Robert in 5th gear, and then I eventually got to the artifact, but it was at a dead end. And then for some reason, I decided to throw out Harambe to try to kill the one Megalodon that chased us in. Look, I don't use my brain very well. So yeah, somehow I managed to actually do that without getting Robert killed, although he was really low health. And now I was leaving the tunnel, and to be honest, I should not have survived this. None of the sharks were attacking me. They were just looking at the wall. So I think they might have been stuck or something. Maybe it was because we were in this like really small area, but I'm not going to question it. I got the artifact. After making it up to the land, I rewarded Robert for not dying by sticking him in a Pokeball, and then we headed back to base. Made it back to base, me and this dodo decided to have a friendly duel. But the dodo decided to cheat and bring in his friend, but two can play at that game. After absolutely destroying him in a duel, I decided to knock out his friend, feed him some berries, name him Bob, and then trap him in a cage with a dung beetle named Reese's Feces. A fate that I would not wish on my worst enemy. Not being trapped in a cage with a giant dung beetle, I meant being named Bob. But anyway, on day 145, I spent a pretty good amount of time looking for deep sea loot crates again, but all I found was an alpha mosasaur that wanted to eat me. And then after that, I realized that so many monkeys died in the snow and swamp cave that I only had exactly enough for the fight. So I grabbed the pink ones, of course, and I started breeding some backups. That way, if I did fail the dragon fight, I wouldn't lose my entire breeding line. I spent the rest of day 146 making sure that they got past the baby phase, and now they're at the juvenile phase, so I got everything ready for the dragon fight, and then I set out for Red Obelisk. One, you're in charge while I'm gone.
Jumping monkey, swimming monkey, murderous monkey, get out of me swamp monkey.
Get ready for the battle of a century. In one corner, we have 17 monkeys, 18 of which are wearing a hat. We have a very hairy otter, and Katy Perry thinks that this is a concert, and she's gonna be performing Roar while we fight. And in the other corner, we have Doug. As we entered the arena, I made sure that Katy Perry and the monkeys were on different tame order groups. There's a lot of mechanics in this fight, but essentially I'm dodging the meteors because they'll one-shot me off the back of my monkey, and when Doug lands, it's time to strike. For some reason, Doug is a coward, and he only wants to target Katy Perry. Quit targeting Katy Perry! I guess this was her last performance. And for some reason, the monkeys are not able to properly target the dragon. Like, they'll just stand there and look at him. It's almost like they only practiced on defenseless targets or something. We had his health down a lot, but it wasn't looking good. attack him! What are you doing? Aggressive? Neutral? Attack target? Like, what do you want me to whistle for you? What is your preferred whistle? I'm looking at it. Just standing there. And just like that, everything was gone, and the breeding line I had was pretty much useless. But there's something I didn't tell you guys. That was never the plan. I wasn't actually expecting the monkeys to beat the dragon, I just kinda wanted to see how far they could get. This entire time, I've had a completely different plan to beat the dragon, and you guys are gonna find out what it is pretty soon. But first, I gotta grab Robert and get back to Red Ob because I left my cryopod in the obelisk because I was expecting to die. And that one singular cryopod is basically carrying my entire run, so kinda need that back. And then on the way home, I looked for some more deep sea loot crates, and I didn't find anything, but I did find a Liopleurodon, which is interesting. And then I stopped by the underwater cave again to grab the artifact, which went really well, surprisingly, except for the electroshock therapy that they did on Robert. But don't worry, he'll be alright. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh please. What is wrong with you? Bro! So, what do you guys say that we just stop trying to actually beat the game and then just have an entire villain arc where we eradicate the species of baryonyx? Anyway, after walking home, I grabbed my gas mask and a backup monkey. I headed back to the swamp cave, and basically the exact same thing as last time happened again. The backup monkey died in this section of the cave. Oh, there goes one of them. I grabbed the artifact, I thanked him for his service, and then I ran. And then on the way home, I had to tame another otter because Harry Otter died in the boss fight as well. I named him Steve. And the monkeys were also grown up now, so I named him Jerry. Jerry then practiced and leveled up his combat skills with the help of like 30 of his baby siblings. Yeah, Jerry's ethics are questionable, but you can't argue with efficiency. And then after seeing all the power that Jerry had harnessed from slaying his baby siblings, Steve had to have a turn. And now that I had a leveled up otter, I was able to go to the snow cave and get the last artifact. And just like that, I had all the artifacts to start the dragon fight again. Now it's time to execute my plan. Got him. Obviously, I would love to do Rexes, because now I can get meat, so I can do literally whatever I want, right? That's way too expensive. That's too expensive. Way too expensive. I think what I'm actually going to do is this dire bear saddle. This is, like, perfect. Obviously, 30 armor is nothing good, but I can get paste from beaver dams, and that's not a ton of hide and fiber. I think that's doable. Alright, it's time to try to go find a dire bear. I made it to the redwoods, and right off the bat, I was finding a pretty good amount of dire bears, but they were all really bad. Really? Bro, he looks so cool. Why is he gotta be level 5? But then after like an hour and a half of just staring at level 20 dire bears, I finally found this. Oh, 150. So I climbed up on this rock and I shot him from afar because I wanted to make sure that I was safe. I was not safe. Not only could he just completely scale entire rocks, but he also did 150 damage per hit. I suspect that this guy was on some performance enhancing drugs. Bro, he's gonna end up killing Jerry. Run! And then he started running. Look, I know this would be easier with the trap, obviously, but like, I can't make a trap. If I was to make a trap, I would use all the resources that I've collected in like 100 hours of gameplay, and I still probably wouldn't have enough. So, yeah. But yeah, this AI pathing for this dire bear was the most annoying thing ever. He would let me shoot him like twice, and then he would run away, so I have to go chase him, and then he just turns around and immediately starts attacking me again, so then I have to go run back to the rock. But then he runs away, and... What?
Oh no, run, 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 run.
Oh, okay, look, I know what it looks like, but I assure you I did not get outplayed by a wild dire bear. Oh, okay, maybe I did, but would you believe me if I said it was because of skill-based matchmaking? Yeah. Well, anyway, now that I was on foot, it was time to channel my master PvP skills. They used to call me the crossbow killer.
What?
Oh, okay, maybe I was the only one that called myself that. Anyways, on a side note, while I'm knocking out this dire bear, there was a bunch of comments on my first video asking like why all these people have their character the same way as mine. It's because this is the meta for PvP. Small hitbox, long reach, as opposed to PvE where people's characters mutate more than their dinos. But anyways, after a massive amount of trank arrows and a very impressive display of PvP skill, I finally claimed my dominance over an AI-controlled bear. I then had to go back and relive my failures as I grabbed the honey off Jerry's body.
Man, I am so sorry, Jerry.
And it seems like this dire bear must have made a lot of enemies, because while I was waiting on him to tame, pretty much every single creature in the entire redwoods wanted to kill him. But as nightfall approached, the dire bear was finally tamed, so I put him in a cryopod, and I didn't have enough arrows or the willpower to knock out another dire bear, so I decided to go for that level 5, and I would just breed all the stats onto a baby. So as my dire bear fought off thousands of degenerates that all hated him for some reason, I started to question what this guy did in his past life. Am I harboring a fugitive? Anyway, he seems to handle himself pretty well, so I'm just gonna ignore it. So I came back to the green level 5 dire bear, but it's a male. Unacceptable. But eventually I found a level 15 female, and that's good enough, so I knocked her out with some trank arrows, fed her some fish meat, and we were well on our way. When I arrived back at my humble abode, I started breeding the dire bears because I needed to get all the good stats onto a female. I also needed to make a saddle, so I started demolishing like every single one of my possessions. That way I could get enough hide to make one saddle. And now for the next step of my plan, I need a massive amount of metal. And this is going to take a ton of fishing, so I brought the dire bears with me to the lake, and I bred the dire bears for mutations and fished at the same time. You know, efficiency and all that. So for the next like 20 days, essentially I catch a fish out of a lake, and then I steal his metal and I don't question where he got it. Then I feed him to a baby bear, and then I repeat the process. But instead of watching me fish for 30 hours, here's a quick recap. This is kind of like nostalgia from when you were in English class and you didn't want to read the full book, so you just went on Spark Notes. And now, 25 days later, it is day 190, and I finally have enough metal to make a ballista turret and a chain bola.
So now you finally get to learn why I just spent 15 hours fishing for a chain bola. I'm gonna tame a Tropio.
And not because I want to launch explosives on all the dinosaurs of the island. These guys' saddles act like industrial grinders. So all those saddles that I've been saving up, I was doing that because I'm going to grind them for their hide, and I'm going to use that to make dire bear saddles. So at the start of day 193, I saddled up Shrek, and we set out to find a Tropio. So yeah, things didn't go to plan. It is now the end of day 94. I went around the entire map, didn't find any Tropios. So I'm looking at their wiki page just to make sure I'm looking in the right spots. And everything on this page seemed normal, but then I came down to the notes section. There was one little line on the bottom here. The Tropio of Nathis will spawn on Crystal Isles. On consoles, however, it will continue to spawn on the island. Well, guess what?
I'm not on consoles. I normally play on consoles, so I'm used to seeing them on the island. I knew they were on the island, but they're not on the island on Steam. So, yeah, they just don't exist. That's why I can't find one. So at this point, I basically built my entire run around the plan of taming a Tropio, and it's a little bit too late for me to do anything else, so I'm just gonna spawn one in, because if I was playing on Xbox, I'd be able to just tame one. So yeah, I'm really sorry if you don't like that, but if you wanted to do this legitimate, it's technically possible. You could just fish for a couple years. But anyway, let's think about this from the Tropio's perspective, right? You're just flying around on Crystal Isles, you're chilling, and then all of a sudden, you just go straight through the Shadow Realm, and you just appear right in front of a ballista turret, and immediately get shot by a chain bola. Well anyways, the Tropio is now tamed. So I demolished the ballista turret, and I got back half of the metal, and then I flew the Tropio back to base, and I named him AC-130, because death. And now I have to breed the dire bears to actually have some ones that are ready for the boss fight, because currently they're all just mutation breeders with no imprint. So I bred and imprinted 18 baby dire bears, which took several days, used every single bit of berries and food that I had, and I also had to continue fishing the entire time because I needed to continually get meat to feed the dire bears. And honestly, I think during this run, I fished for about 20 hours, and I'm solely responsible for the endangerment of like 45 different species of fish, and trying to make this video entertaining when like 50% of it is just me sitting in a chair. It's pretty crazy. And I think it's safe to say that I don't like fishing anymore. Well, not that I did anyway. But anyways, I now had 18 fully raised and imprinted dire bears, and I taught them all Harambe's combat tactics of training on his baby siblings. So they all have a pretty good bit of levels now as well. So I headed back to base, I made some scuba, and then I tamed a dolphin while there were sharks chasing me the entire time, because Robert is unfortunately deceased, and I need some way of getting deep sea loot crates to make a saddle for my Tropio. And at this point, it was day 205, so me and Finn Diesel headed out, and we tried to find some deep sea loot crates, but after making an entire lap around the map, I didn't find anything, so I checked up on a spreadsheet, making sure that I knew where all the locations were, and then I went around the map again and checked each location, and I managed to find a couple supply drops after my third and fourth trips around the map. But then when I got back to base, I was really upset that I hadn't found a saddle. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, the chances of me finding that exact thing are so low. But anyway, I realized you don't even need one. So I just wasted like a couple hours. You can literally just put the stuff into AC-130 and he'll eat it. So after a lot of wasted time, I proceeded to feed AC-130 about 40 entire saddles, and he happily munched those things down. And I now had a couple thousand hide, and I didn't quite have enough to use the blueprint, but I was able to make 18 primitive dire bear saddles. So after saddling up all the dire bears, everything was almost ready to take down Doug, but there was one thing left that I needed to do. Now that I actually had materials, I crafted a trap this time, and then I headed back to the snow to tame a new Katy Perry. I actually found a UD pretty quickly, but the UD also found me. This is definitely not how I intended to use this trap, but sometimes you gotta think outside the box. Or in this case, sometimes you have to sit inside the box. So after an insane amount of trank arrows and a lot of waiting around, I was able to effectively brainwash a UD that happened to be named Katy Perry II and get her to help me fight a dragon named Doug. This is quite the matchup. After grinding a few more things with AC-130, I was able to make Katy Perry a saddle, and then she decided to practice her combat skills on a bunch of baby dire bears as well, and we ran away from our ethics straight to Red Obelisk to take down Doug. Are you ready, Steve? Going into this fight, I had a really effective plan outlined that I was going to stick to, but Doug is one of the strongest bosses in this game, and only having primitive saddles, there is no room for error. When Doug decided to stop being a coward and actually land, I made sure the dire bears were far enough away, that way me and Katy Perry could take the initial 20% hit from Doug's fire breath, and the dire bears were able to remain full health as Katy Perry with 35k HP continued to tank the hits. What I didn't account for, however, is that with primitive saddles, Doug does an insane amount of damage. Doug was so powerful that Katy Perry died about 15 seconds into getting hit by the dragon, and I was able to switch to a dire bear, but once Doug actually turned around and started breathing fire, the dire bears died about 30 seconds later. But there was still a small bit of hope, and I was not ready to give up just yet. When I record videos, I always play on official multiplayer server setting, but that's a lot harder than it really needs to be. So I decided to check the single player settings box, which is probably what a lot of people play on when they record these single player videos, and we're gonna give this one more shot. Okay, so I just one-cycled the dragon, and the bears didn't even get hit a single time. You can say it's because of single-player settings. It does increase the damage we deal to bosses and decreases the damage it does to us, but I do think it's possible on official if we had better saddles or better base dire bears before we started breeding. But anyways, I could not just end the video after dying to Doug, not only because I can't give Doug that satisfaction, but I also didn't want to end the video without at least trying to take down the Overseer, because we have to give this 0 times race challenge a fair shot, and we have to do it for Harambe. Nice. So after heading back to base to grab all of the trophies from the 3 different bosses, and everything that we've done through this entire 200 days led up to this moment right here. And now the only thing standing between me and the Overseer is this tech cave with hundreds of creatures inside with the singular life goal of stopping me from achieving my dreams. What's it like being that big of a hater? Despite a few scary moments, we made it through the tech cave, and it was finally time to take down the Overseer. I took my time on the way through the tech cave, not because I was nervous, even though I was, but honestly this place is beautiful and I've only been in here like twice. But eventually I finally made my way into the arena, and once the Overseer started constructing, there was no turning back. This fight is actually easier than the dragon in my opinion, but essentially you have to attack the overseer while he's defenselessly running around the arena. He can shock you and dismount you, which can instantly kill you. That's the main danger, and he basically transforms into all 3 different bosses periodically, and you have to keep defeating them over and over the longer it takes you in the arena. Speed is everything here.
Oh my. And just like that, the Overseer was conquered, and we just beat the island on ARK Survival Evolved on 0 times rates. This is the absolute hardest map to do it on, but I also wanted to try ARK Ascended. There was still one more menace to society out there, named Greg, and I'm still on 0 times rates. So let me roll back this calendar to make it a little bit more aesthetic. And now I have 100 days to beat one final map, Scorched Earth Ascended.
On day 1, I woke up in a desert. It's kind of hot in here. I had a dream of being the best farmer in the West, but no matter how hard I punched this cactus or how firmly I grabbed this thorn bush, my inventory was still empty. Anyways, my first goal was to not die and hopefully find some supply drops to get a weapon to defend myself. But unfortunately, before I made it to the obelisk, I got deleted by a wild degenerate. Help. The end. When I respawned, I looked at this random gerboa and bro said, "Brrr." And that means there's a storm brewing. So I got kind of scared. This map is brutal, man. Like, the supply drops are better, but besides that, it's a lot worse than ARK Evolved. Anyway, I finally made it to an explorer note to level up, and then I found a supply drop with some spears, so I actually might be able to defend myself. Things were looking suspiciously good. But then, a heat wave struck. Man's prophecy has come to life. So I tried to use the water to stay cool, but it didn't last very long, and I got evaporated by the sun. Yeah, it's just not survivable. I decided to wait out the storm in the afterlife. So now the day was almost over, but so was the storm. Yeah, it's still pretty hot. But I did manage to finally survive by cooling down in the water, and thanks to a very generous sabertooth, I have a slingshot to defend myself. Oh, let's go. And when the heat calmed down a bit, I managed to finally stop imitating a fish, but this run was starting to get pretty difficult, and I really needed to come up with a plan. I don't have a reliable method of getting meat, since I can't harvest anything, but I can loot berries from killing wild dinos. So herbivores seem like the best option, but the only weapon I have right now is some very small arms. I need to find a weapon very soon, and the only way I could think of is by looting supply drops. I just have to be smart about it and try to not die every time. So I brutally incapacitated this jerboa so he could help warn me of sandstorms by saying brrr. And together we set out to find some free handouts from the sky. Well, that went well. Luckily, nightfall was approaching though, and without the brutal heat, I actually did manage to make it to the green obelisk. Not only is there water here, but I can also use the terminal as a storage box for my supply drop loot. That way, if I die, I can come back later and get it. Anyways, I eventually made it to a blue drop. Requires survivor level 30 to open. What? I thought blue was level 25. But then I spotted something in the distance. This is the first time I've ever seen someone with smaller arms than me. Anyways, clearly I needed to level up a bit, but I don't know any note runs on this map since I usually do them on the island. So I kind of just spawned around different areas where I think that there's some notes. Whoa. Yeah, it didn't exactly go how I had planned. Really? We just had a heat wave like 10 minutes ago. Well, somehow I survived that, and I managed to find an explorer note and a mastercraft Phiomia saddle from this white drop. But before I could even start my Phiomia breeding line, this happened. Where did you even come from? Good times. After grabbing another explorer note and getting some fur armor so I can incubate myself during heat waves, I witnessed this Carno beefing with an Yankee right in front of his child. I was really rooting for the Yankee because I wanted to take custody over the Carno's poor little baby. But unfortunately, the Carno seems to have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and the Yankee seems to be indisposed at the moment. This entire time, I was still trying to get back to the obelisk, by the way, but between the local sociopaths, this game literally crashing multiple times. Oh my. I couldn't do anything, but I wasn't ready to give up just yet. Alright, I finally have some pretty good stuff to get started. So, the stuff that was on my body is way too valuable for me to just let it despawn, but World War III is going on over there, and I don't know what to do. Excuse me? This map is insane. Easy zone, by the way. But then I spawned next to a purple drop, and this was the exact moment where things started to seem possible. I got a harpoon launcher with 40 spear bolts. I have a legitimate weapon now. I have to get this thing to a storage box. Like how? I did actually manage to get it back, but not for very long. My original body has a mortar and pestle in it, which I can use to store the harpoon launcher, but I can't find it anywhere. And to make matters worse, well, Mr. Sandstorm is here. Really, bro? That's like 3 in 3 days. I just couldn't catch a break on this map, man. And since you can't level movement speed in this game, there's basically a 0% chance of survival if literally anything glances in my direction. But after experiencing death for the 83rd time, I finally got my harpoon launcher back. The other stuff is long gone by now, I would assume. But it is nighttime, and it's not hot, so I started safely making my way up the river. All was going pretty well, but then something very unexpected happened. Let's see if you guys can guess what it was, you know, just using your context clues. Was it A, I found a bed and I set up a magnificent base? Was it B, Vin Diesel spawned in next to me and adopted me into his family? Or was it C, Mr. Sandstorm? I only died once on my way back to my body though, and I got 19 sand from that as well, so now I can build, well, I don't know, a sandcastle or something.
Nice.
Anyway, I started making my way to the red obelisk to hopefully get my harpoon launcher to safety. And I almost got removed from the premises by this Carno, but by some miracle, I managed to limp away with a broken leg. I honestly should not be alive right now, but everything was now safely deposited into my retirement account. And at this point, I'm just standing here, naked and starving, with no food and a broken leg. All I need now is a bed so I can actually spawn near the obelisk, so I kept exploring for supply drops. And eventually I found some ghillie in this purple drop, and in ARK, ghillie keeps you cool. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either, just go with it. I almost had the ghillie to the red obelisk, but I was being followed by a miscreant. This is gonna be close. Dude, are you actually serious right now? So, I decided to finally turn off frame generation, which actually does prevent the game from crashing, but it doesn't prevent giant boulders from giving me a concussion. It is kind of annoying that I have to play without frame gen though, because now I get like 80 FPS instead of 160. I thought that this would be fixed by now considering the DLC's out, but you know. Anyway, I found a yellow drop, but I'm literally one level too low. And then for some reason, all of the drops just like stop spawning. I spawned like 8 times in a bunch of different spots, and there were none anywhere near me. But eventually they started spawning again, and I spent the rest of day 4 just looting drops and dying repeatedly. Oh yeah, did I mention there was also another sandstorm? On day 5, I died a lot. I found a few drops though, and I've officially died 60 times in 5 days. Kind of impressive, not gonna lie. It's definitely getting kind of repetitive though, so we don't need to show all of that, but I did manage to get some pretty decent items to the green obelisk. I still don't have a bed though. Where is Pro going?
You're a wizard, Harry.
And then I ended off day 5 by grabbing a pretty decent green drop and then immediately being eviscerated by my mortal enemy. Yeah, on day 6, I kind of gave up on getting that stuff back, but I found a few new drops and I got some handcuffs and a grenade, which is clearly what I was looking for. I'll skip ahead a bit though, because it's literally just Juztify versus everybody, and it's kind of repetitive.
Is there no one else?
So yeah, the whole day was basically just me role-playing as a prehistoric microwavable pizza while being trolled by heat waves and sandstorms. Nighttime is always an opportunity to survive though, and this time was different from the last 5 days. I managed to find some desert cloth pants, which is a pretty sizable profit if I do say so myself, but I also found a pre-made ballista turret. These things cost an insane amount of resources to craft, meaning if I demolish it, I'm gonna be the second richest person in the world. I perished. Luckily, I was able to get back to the obelisk after a couple tries, and the raptors were all on vacation. So now I have everything in the obelisk, including a ballista turret. It's time to make a base. So I unlocked some things inside my brain, and I set up some of the wooden structures that I already had. I placed down and demolished the ballista turret, and then I realized I actually have everything that I need to craft a smithy. Nice. Wait. I needed that hide for a bed. After finishing a very impressive base, I realized that I had this flag. Ooh, that might actually give me enough hide for a bed. So yeah, the flag gave me exactly what I needed, but I was out of thatch. It's actually insane to be bottlenecked by the literal most accessible resource in the entire game. So I'm gonna have to find some more structures for the thatch. But while I was here, I did want to test out all the new skins that they added with the Bob's Tall Tales DLC. It pretty much only requires wood, which ironically I have plenty of. They actually look pretty cool. There's like a jail and some saloon doors and a window pane. You want to get in, buddy? Dude, that actually looks really good. There's also these outlaw cowboy skins, and I'm definitely going to be using those. But unfortunately, it takes hide, and, well, it also takes clothes. And right now, I'm kind of naked. And there's massive trains. But, like... Well, I'm excited for the cowboy skin. So yeah, after that, I headed back to the Red Ob, and I uploaded the harpoon launcher and everything else that I was storing over there. And I spent the rest of day 7 complaining about sandstorms and getting physically, mentally, spiritually, and theoretically assaulted by various degrees of degeneracy. On day 8, I hit the massive milestone of 100 deaths, and I didn't really do much else. I couldn't find any thatch for a bed. But then after searching for like an hour, I got another ballista turret. I did also have this forge, and I don't think I'll ever have raw metal. So I went to place it so I could demolish it, and I placed it not on a foundation. That's not possible. But after breaking the fabric of reality, I demolished the new ballista turret and finally had enough hide to make a bed. It only took like 9 days. Wait, you can make coffins and use them as beds? So after all that pain, I now have desert cloth pants and gloves, a harpoon launcher with 78 spear shots, which is kind of huge, and a crossbow with 33 tranks. So I made some cloth armor to fill in the cowboy aesthetic, and my goal now is to delete some thugs to loot berries and use them to tame something with my tranks. Is this considered overkill? I don't think that I can breed carnivores because meat is basically impossible for me to get outside of the little amounts from supply drops. On my way home, I tried to have a duel with this thorny dragon, and I kind of realized why nobody uses harpoon launchers. And then when I made it back to base, I found some direwolves trying to take over the tri-state area. So this time I was kind of forced to get closer, but it was a good chance to test if the harpoon launcher can actually take these guys out.
Why are you running?
This man has got 12 spears protruding from his spine. He gave me no loot. The launcher is already like 30% broken now. But while I was trying to brainstorm some better options, this random thorny dragon just started assaulting my wooden foundation. Why? But this time, I actually got my shot off while we were underwater. And yeah, the harpoon launcher, I mean, it's amazing under the water. So that's definitely something useful to consider, you know, considering I'm in a desert. Bro, can y'all chill out already? I didn't actually mean to knock that dude out, but I do have a bit of meat, so I decided to tame him. I can almost guarantee that you're gonna starve to death, buddy. So at this point, it was day 10, and it seems like the waves of murderous psychopaths have chilled out a bit. So I spent my entire life savings on 2 small crop plots and a water intake. It's kind of insane how thatch is literally my limiting resource. I demolished a storage box to try and get some more thatch for a foundation, but apparently I can't count and I still don't have enough. I actually have like a lifetime supply of metal and cementing paste, so I just made 2 metal foundations instead. Well, that's one way to place a water tap. So I moved all my perishables into my brand new preserving bin. And then I fertilized my crops. I'm definitely gonna need some tames to keep up the fert on these berries, but for now this should work. I also realized that I don't have the resources for spark powder, so this entire preserving bin was basically just a waste of the only thatch and fiber that I had. These vessels can store preserving salts, and I do actually have some from a drop. So in true American fashion, I can just put a bunch of salt on everything, and now the food gets preserved. See, this cooked meat spoils in 13 minutes, but whenever I place some salt on the shelf next to it, the meat gets super motivated, and now it has 26 minutes before spoiling. You can also carry some on me to preserve food too, and it's actually a really cool mechanic that I haven't used much. Alright, so I just talked about salt for like 45 seconds, but anyway, I headed back out. I still need to get some tames because Chance the Raptor is not really that great, and I also don't have any hide to make him a saddle. But there was a heat wave going on, and it definitely wasn't the smartest time for me to be leaving my base. I didn't make it back before getting evaporated. You know, I don't feed the guy, so honestly that's kind of valid. I wasn't really that far away though, so I did try to run back, but this random terror wizard rose from the floor and tried to decapitate me. I started comboing up on that man, and I think I almost knocked him out, but I inevitably perished. While I was waiting on the bed to respawn, I found a metal shield and a yellow drop, and I wasn't exactly able to get it back to my base, but bro, these things are insane. I never really used them because movement speed used to be a thing, but I think I need to get myself a shield. So now that I had everything back, I decided to make a bola to make taming a bit easier. I wanted to make like 5, but they cost 10 thatch each. Some of us are struggling out here. Can't even escape inflation in a dinosaur video game. Anyways, I found my body with that shield and some pistol ammo on it, which was huge because I actually did have a fabricated pistol. I just don't have the thatch. But then a direwolf followed me back to base and I didn't notice. Chance the Raptor put up a great fight, but the direwolf was just too powerful. So I decided to recruit him to my cult. He seemed more interested in swimming than joining my tribe, maybe because it doesn't possess food. But I did manage to eventually tame the guy, and I named him Arnold. Direwolves actually don't need saddles, so now that I had my first real mount, me and Arnold set out to take on the West. I hate this map. Why are there 847 terror beasts? Well, that happened. So it took me a couple tries.
Why though? Alright, bro. I get it. You want to kill me.
But eventually, I got my stuff back, like 12 hours later. And when I made it back, the terror beast sent one of their members to raid my magnificent base. So on behalf of Arnold and Chase the Raptor, I repeatedly shot him with some narcotic-laced arrows, and he decided to run into the water to take a nap. He definitely should be drowning right now, but somehow he's just, you know, chilling under the water. Bro's aquatic, that's crazy. So I got kind of distracted. Yeah, he woke up. I evaluated all of the saddles that I had, and to be honest, the only viable one at this point was for a saber-tooth. But I have no bolas and no meat, so I need to find some more drops if I want to tame one of those. My water skin is actually allowing me to sprint, so it was a bit easier, and I did find a desert cloth helmet. Of course, I switched my cowboy hat skin to that immediately. But on the way home, after getting yeeted on by this moth, I became a McTerror sandwich. So I got a spyglass and another water skin, some adobe walls, and a really good thorny dragon saddle. So I think that's what I'm gonna go for actually, because I can knock them out pretty safely and the saddle is kind of insane. So I replaced some walls with the new adobe ones. My house is slowly becoming less of an air fryer. And I headed back into the desert heat in search of a thorny dragon. I found a level 30 right across from my base, which is, it's not optimal, but I went ahead and knocked him out. And after going on a detour to steal some crystal from the screen drop, I scouted the area, taking note of all the different ways I might die today. Oh, level 85. Dododex says this guy would take 18 tranks or 7 to the head. That's pretty easy actually, and I have more than enough. I actually managed to get him stuck, but then he blinked at me and then gained the ability to turn around. At this point, the level 30 was finished, and a very generous Sabertooth had volunteered for testing. He definitely could improve in the mobility department, alright, but he's a lot stronger than I expected, to be honest. So I decided to level some health on him, but then I realized he actually has to eat to heal up. Yeah, I didn't think this through. Meanwhile, the level 85 is taking a really long time, and it doesn't help that I have to use cooked meat because I ran out of raw. And while I was waiting, the level 30 almost died to a low level Thyla, so yeah, these things are decent, but I still need to be very careful, especially because of how slow they are. Anyways, the level 85 finished a few minutes later, and I gave him an appropriate name. And after grabbing a flag from this white drop, one of the like 3 structures that will actually give me hide, I started heading back to base, but it took 3 years because Scorched Earth never misses its daily routine. Oh, this might take a while. And when the sandstorm reluctantly ended, it was time for me to get my revenge on this world. So I can't get meat from these kills, which is why these thorny dragons they're definitely gonna starve to death, but please don't tell them that. But I am looting a lot of berries from killing carnivores, and this is really gonna help me to tame some solid herbivores. I just want to point out that there have been 2 sandstorms today, like 10 minutes apart. Anyways, I made it back home at the end of day 12, and the baby Carno passed away, unfortunately. But the baby terror bird is still kicking. Well, barely. I decided to give him the privilege of borrowing the last of my meat. Hopefully that'll last him until he's fully grown. And I'm actually kind of loaded in terms of gear now. On day 13, I spent some time organizing my base, and I decided to name my terror bird What I was saying before I got interrupted by the Civil War was that I decided to name my terror bird Steve. And when I headed back out, I slayed Steve's cousin and he dropped a treasure map. Like, that's actually so cool. Bro had the knowledge. The treasure is like 3 light years to the west, but I'm definitely gonna go for it. I just need to craft a shovel. There were a bunch of red drops in the distance, so my goal was to pick up some of those on the way there. But about halfway into my expedition, they all despawned. NyQuil is now starving to death, and I am dying from heat stroke. Good times. Luckily, I made it to the valley, and it's not as hot here. I was making my way towards the buried treasure, and I met this little jerboa fella, who informed me of... So after recruiting this weatherman,
Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy?
I actually made it to the dig site, and I channeled my inner pirate. That BP is insane. I'm never going to afford it, but it do be insane. The weather had started rolling in at this point, but luckily it was just an electric storm, and we were able to head back home. When we made it back home, NyQuil was looking a bit malnourished, and he's already exceeded his rations for this year. But I decided to break my code of ethics, and I fed him the last of my cooked meat. Anyways, I powered my new narco berry plant with some very organic material, and then Fox News got eviscerated by a thyla. But after I did some home renovations, it was time to decide what creature was going to fight Greg by going through mass breeding. I'm definitely considering getting a wyvern, but they would probably starve quickly after raising, so it wouldn't really be for the boss. But in terms of herbivores, there's really not many on Scorched Earth. Like, look at the list. 90% of these dudes are absolute psychopaths that would love to murder me. I know Kintros can work. I kind of proved that in my no killing video, and I've also used Ankies. And obviously, Megatheriums are omnivores. We all know they're pretty OP. But I want to do something different that hasn't been done before. I do have something in mind, and I'm not sure if they're strong enough, especially without saddles since I have no hide. And I'm gonna tell you guys about my choice very soon when I'm ready to tame one. But for now, we're gonna get some transportation, either a Procoptodon or Limantry. And hopefully we'll get one before NyQuil enters the Shadow Realm via starving. So after grabbing an exorbitant amount of supply drops for the majority of day 14, I was able to demolish some structures for that. I spent about half of day 15 looking for supply drops because literally everyone is starving. And despite some sand related technical difficulties, I was able to give everyone their ration of 23 calories for the month. And I ended off the day by getting materials from demolishing a very horrendous structure that I built. I'm pretty good on thatch now, so I was able to craft some bolas for taming, but I still have no hide. Also, NyQuil is probably gonna die, like, very soon, but that's a sacrifice that I am humbly willing to make. Anyways, from this point on, I'm still going to be looting supply drops for like 50% of my recording, but I'm not really going to show them anymore unless it's something important because I know this is getting repetitive. And speaking of important, I finally found some rare flowers in one of the drops, so now I can tame a Procoptodon. When I made it back to base, I wanted to make a saddle to prepare for my new Procoptodon. Oh, okay. I managed to scrap together a very diverse trap using mostly pre-made structures, and then I made some narcotics and I saddled up the low-level thorny dragon because NyQuil has reached the 4th quarter and there's not enough beef jerky for the both of us. But right after I left my mansion, I found a saddle for Steve, so I decided to go back and I was gonna take him instead since he's faster. Steve isn't very strong. I spent like 10 minutes leveling Steve's weight and trying to reduce the load, but bro is locked in right now. Meanwhile, NyQuil has 50 health left, and then the stars aligned as a storm rolled in. And so I thanked him for his service with a firm salute, as NyQuil transcended from the earth.
Please, sir, I want some more.
Goodbye, my friend. You did good. Anyway, Steve still sucks. The trap is extremely heavy, but I also realized that I've just been casually carrying around this 45-pound shield. So I just dropped that, and we set out to tame a Procoptodon. After exterminating a micro nuisance, we found a level 15 moth, which is pretty terrible. But I decided to tame him because Steve's about to be dead from starvation soon. And after my Cinnamoth finished, we set up the most scuffed trap of all time next to 2 Procoptodons and a cute little baby. I ate some rare flowers, which made them very angry. And after several minutes of very highly skilled gameplay. I finally trapped this guy, and I also trapped myself. Bro, what is going on right now? Steve, why was that man beefing with you like that? So now I have my first good herbivore knocked with his child just standing here traumatized. Okay, so they don't eat rare flowers. I'm not sure why I thought they did, but I've had rare mushrooms since like day 5, so I could have done this 10 days ago. On the way back to my humble abode, I became one with the sun. And then I distributed the herbivores their rations. Steve got a firm handshake instead. Is this a Oh, this is what you use to revive with the Oasis Sword. So I found NyQuil's essence, and I might be able to revive him using the new Oasis Sword. But I am on 0 times. Okay, you gotta remember that, so don't get your expectations too high. I'm gonna try. I still don't even have a saddle to ride Optimus Prime, and Steve's about to die from protein deficiency. But luckily, I did find enough fish meat in a drop for both Steve and NyQuil's cousin to make it through the night. And at the end of day 17, while I was waiting on yet another sandstorm, a wandering merchant and his wandering son stumbled upon my penthouse. What I meant to say was that there was a poor orphan and nobody to take care of him. So I humbly took him in as my own. Anyways, it's day 18. There's still a heat wave going on, and Fox News is already forecasting a brrr. But Steve and I already had plans to search every corner of the desert today, and we weren't going to come back home until I had some structures that would give me hide for the Procoptodon saddle. So that was over 2 days of searching, and my luck has been pretty bad. But I did find some war drums, and I can't just demolish a perfectly good set of war drums without at least trying them out. So I decided to serenade Steve, which seemed to invoke the hatred of Steve's cousin who tried to pillage my home office. Luckily, we won, and I played us a victory song.
Victory screech!
Well, that was fun. I have 75 hide now. At this point, the orphaned racer had become a full-grown man, so I put a stainless steel platform on his back. I actually do have enough hide for Cinnamoth's saddle, but I'm not sure if I want to save up 500 for Optimus Primes instead, but I wasn't having much luck with hide from drops. And when I made it back to base, there was a galley just pretending to be stuck. Bro was just willingly letting me incapacitate him. He was only level 15, but I have a really good galley saddle, and these guys are one of the fastest land creatures in the entire game. I don't need to worry about transportation anymore, but I'm definitely not fighting anything with this fine gentleman, so I still need hide for a Procoptodon saddle. Yo! Help, Steve! No, Steve's too fat. I almost lost the galley right there, but I did manage to claim that neglectful direwolf's mutated child. And I got a little bit of hide from a bunk bed while I was out. Oh yeah, also, a Daedon murdered Steve in broad daylight, and I had the recording paused, so yeah. It's all good though, because he was gonna starve in a few hours anyway. I was still going pretty heavy on drops for hide at this point, and some highlights were a flamethrower and some propellant for ammo from this red drop. And there was also a pretty solid yellow drop with a canteen and some flag. And then I died. But now day 23 was coming to an end, so I demolished some more structures for hide. I still need 220 more. I really don't want to be grabbing drops for like 40 more days, bro. So yeah, this was the moment where I hit my breaking point. I'm no longer making a Procoptodon saddle. Maybe later if I happen to find some hide. But I had a pretty good plan. I was going to try the cave on foot. What could go wrong? So I gathered all my weapons and I took some inventory of what I had to work with. Apparently flamethrower ammo can only be crafted at a chem bench, and that was like 50% of my plan. So I will admit it ain't looking good. My plants also died because my tames won't fertilize when I don't feed them. I think I can still do the caves though, but I'm gonna bring this green direwolf with me for some emotional support. I named him the Grinch because if you look really, really closely, he kind of has like the smallest little hint of green. Can you see it? So now that everything was ready, I spent the last of my silk to repair my armor, and I set out to find the artifact of the gatekeeper. I don't know where this cave is. So after doing some extensive research, I reached the entrance to the cave. And the Grinch must have ate a little too much roast beef last Christmas because bro was too wide to fit. I tried to do some parkour using this rock to jump over the wall. It would have been pretty sick, alright? I actually almost pulled that off, but I ended up having to go around and doing it the boring way. And on day 25, after eliminating a few miscreants, we made it to the cave, and the Grinch's stomach was grumbling. I decided to give him the last of my meat, but this might be the last time food ever enters his mouth. I hope you enjoy it, buddy. So my Grinch and I made our way through the cave, and it seems that nobody's home. Maybe they're throwing a surprise birthday party for the Grinch. We found a scorpion around the halfway mark, and in the central area, there were a bunch of giant desert centipedes just waiting to disintegrate my clothes. I managed to snipe and kite these two off the ledge, but then this happened. Yeah, I would have been fine if I dismounted, but like, he touched the side on the way down. Anyways, I grabbed the artifact because all the oversized centipedes were sitting in the abyss. And I headed out. Oh! Alright, we're good, we're good. Oh, bro! Okay. I have some issues when it comes to jumping over gaps. And on the way out, the surprise birthday party had commenced. Basically, everything spawned behind me after I made it through. And now I'm getting assaulted by hash-slinging slashers while the Grinch is at his weakest point. When you're low health in this game, the stamina regen is really bad. But I took it slow, and I eventually made it out the cave. And on the way home, I had to feed my Grinch a little bit of my beef jerky just to, you know, keep him going. And when we arrived, he was starving again with 87 health. Good times. So I quickly scrambled to take Roadrunner out. We needed to find some meat ASAP. Nice. Just kidding, he perished from lack of beef jerky, which traumatized Roadrunner. Look man, I'm sorry, okay, but it's literally easier to tame a new Grinch than it is to try to feed this one. Anyways, I was checking the materials for cryopods, and I realized that I actually do have everything to make some. I don't have very much crystal or hide, but I was able to get the materials together to craft 2 cryopods. And I ended out the day by reorganizing a bit and putting up all of the weapons for later. On day 26, I decided to spend my remaining hide on Cinnamoth's saddle, and now I have no hide or fiber. I would love to use Optimus Prime, but grinding drops all day would make this video very, very boring. Maybe I'll find a saddle and a drop later though. Anyways, I put Roadrunner in a Pal Sphere. And me and Cinnamoth headed out to tame the new breeders, to fight Greg. And then I sat here for a few minutes waiting on this yellow drop to come down. But then I realized that it's been down the entire time. It's just under the floor. Okay, so I'm about to reveal the tame that we're going to use for this challenge. And some of you may have guessed it, but it's an herbivore and it's very appropriate for Scorched Earth. If you haven't guessed it yet, you can leave your guess in the comments. We'll see if you're right.
Gigantopithecus putus is a fast-flying...
Okay, thanks for telling me about that.
Rockwell, old bean, you've done it again.
I found a 150 Morellatops. Yeah, I'm using the Camelsaurus. But there was like 27 degenerates all committing gang violence against that man, and there was nothing I could do but watch as a bystander. I've got to find another one. But then a Microraptor took flight and dismounted me mid-air. Oh no. I almost deceased. But luckily I have 510 health because that allows you to survive any fall. Granty taught me that. I used to pump movement speed like a menace in ARK Evolved, but I can't do that anymore. Anyways, I found a drop with 2 more bunk beds, which is huge for hide. And then I found this red drop. Like, dude, just look at this. What? Bro, there's a whole industrial forge in here. And a Mastercraft Uni saddle. That is ridiculous. I'm overweight. On the way home, I got assaulted by waves of jealous microraptors. They must have known that I had that 50-pound industrial forge in my back pocket. And when I made it back to base, a reincarnation of Steve deleted Baby Hop. I can't fit all this loot. I normally would just make another storage box, but since I can't farm, I'm kind of trying to save my fiber. Anyways, now it's time to find a Morellatops. Dododex says that it'll take 15 trank arrows. These guys aren't normally aggressive, they usually just run away, but since he's a baby, he was super motivated to remove my existence. I used this cactus as a barrier and just ran in circles. And I accidentally shot the dude again after he got knocked. Yeah, he's at 90% effectiveness now. But at least I'll be able to claim his child that he's currently sitting on top of right now, parent of the year. So I was just chilling, waiting on my tame. The taming effectiveness was down to 60% at this point. So I knocked out the Microraptor and I beat him to death. Get away from me, bro. So when he finished, the stats were a bit scuffed as expected, but honestly it was still pretty decent. Unfortunately, claiming the 130 baby isn't great because he stays 130. He doesn't get the taming effectiveness levels. Really? Again? So after deleting another weirdo, I tried cryopodding these guys, but my game was glitched. It just wouldn't work. Well, that's what I thought. Apparently the electric storm disables cryopods. I haven't really played Scorched Earth since before cryopods existed, so I didn't know that was a thing, but that's interesting, I guess. On the way home, a Pego literally kidnapped Roadrunner. And then a sandstorm immediately began. I made it back, you know, slowly. I was looking around my horribly organized penthouse to see if I had a Morellatops saddle. I couldn't find one. And then another Pego tried to hold Roadrunner for ransom again. These dudes have an obsession. I set out to find a good male Morellatops. It didn't take long before I came across a 135, but it was a female. I already have a female, but because of my mortal enemy, this one probably has better stats. But as soon as I started trying to knock this guy out, I got assaulted by the entire Morellatops population. And then an uninvited heatwave showed up. I'm not trying to die today, so I headed back home. I found a level 50 at my base, so I tried to tame him, but he got eaten by a pig. So yeah, I basically just waited on the heat wave to end, and I made a Morellatops saddle in the meantime. I went back to that 135 that I found earlier, and Donald cleared out his own species, and then helped me to knock the 135 by invading his personal space. And after chasing the dude across like 4 countries, I convinced him to take a nap, and I managed to get 96% effectiveness. His name is Mozzarellatops. The stats are much higher, but still better than Donald Hump, so I could use him for caves and different stuff like that for now. By the way, I know I've said this before, but I'm getting 2 sandstorms a day sometimes, and I doubt Wildcard is watching this video, but if you are, bro, please reduce the frequency. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Anyways, I spent the rest of day 30 looking for a male Morellatops because Donald Hump is a female. And it only took like 20 minutes, but I found a 135 male and then got stuck on this leaf. The reason he's running like a coward instead of assaulting me like Mozzarellatops did is because they only have confidence when friends are around. But he wanted to run so bad that he decided to run into a Thyla and became a breakfast burrito. I stepped in to try to save him, and I did, but Donald Hump has the mobility of an 80-year-old tree. Yeah, I couldn't turn at all. I did manage to knock him out on foot, but just know, there's like a 10-minute clip of me chasing a prehistoric camel and missing 90% of my shots. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I'm actually surprised he didn't run into any carnivores with all that running, but he's down now. I had to go back to base to grab my last 18 berries and then sent him off, ate them all. This guy is the reason that I only had 18 to begin with, and now I'm at absolute 0. Bro, what is that? Oh. Apparently that's supposed to be a racer, okay. So I spawned Mozzarellatops to extort some berries from the locals. But then when I put the berries into tame, he wouldn't eat them. I actually sat here for about 10 minutes just staring at him, and bro was on a hunger strike. I didn't really know what was happening because I've never seen this before. I thought maybe it was just a glitch. So I spent my entire life savings to make some wood structures and build a wall, you know, in memory of Donald Hump. My plan was to just let him wake up and then immediately disrupt his circadian rhythm again. No! I rushed over with a 3-second response time and I got my revenge for Roadrunner. But it didn't matter because he's gone now. If I find an Oasisaur, I'm going to try my best to bring back Roadrunner over everything else. I don't know if I can, but he was the real MVP of getting me started in this run, and I owe him to try. That is one massive salmon. So I had to wait a bit because of a sandstorm, but when I headed back over, he was gone. This little hyena somehow ate 200,000 calories in one meal. I decided that it would be better to just tame a low-level one and breed the stats onto a baby. But this level 45 that I found ended up dying to a saber, and when I went to claim the baby level 45, nothing happened. I'm pressing Y. The game just wasn't working. There's definitely something wrong. So I restarted my game and I found another level 20 male. So after knocking him out and grabbing some berries from my mansion, he was on a hunger strike too. Bro, what is going on? There wasn't even a taming bar, like at all. And everything was fine about an hour ago. So I backed out and I went to check my settings, and apparently disable taming is on. Well, I assume that might, maybe, possibly, perhaps, that could be the reason why I can't tame anything. Man, is it too late to just play Minecraft? Luckily, it saved right after the tame finished, and on day 34, I started breeding some boss Morellatops. I thought they were mammals, but apparently they're dinosaurs. Look pretty hairy to me. But yeah, they lay eggs. But the eggs were just incubating, just sitting on the ground without any air conditioners or anything, so we should still be good. Little guy's bigger than Fox News. Upon further inspection, I realized that this unit was a bit garbage. But then a Thyla tried to invade my country, so I adopted his child. Also, the eggs were now too hot. I think they might only be able to incubate at night. So I decided to try and build a platform, and I used metal because I have an unlimited supply of that, but I have like nothing else. I managed to get enough electronics and crystal for a generator and 2 air conditioners. That's essentially all my resources, but I shouldn't need to make any more advanced structures now anyways. Kind of ironic how I just spent like 400 metal, but I only have 50 fiber. Anyways, I hatched a bunch of eggs, and I got 1 good male and 1 good female, but I barely have anything to feed them. So after disposing of some waste, I headed out to grind some berries from carnivores because my crop plots kind of died because I have no fertilizer, because my tames are starving, so they can't produce fertilizer. It's like the reverse circle of life. So yeah, hopefully we'll make it out the Great Depression. Did I actually just do that? So I may be a little bit of an idiot, but at least I still have the baby female Morellatops. Okay. I can't even be mad at the game because this is my fault in every way possible. But I gotta do something else because I'm about to lose my mind at this point. So I crafted a ton of fire arrows and I loaded up my arsenal. I'm gonna use this level 35 Thyla, which is all I have right now, to hopefully take down the next cave and get the artifact of the destroyer. Flame arrows are pretty overpowered, so I should be fine. When I arrived, I realized that the entrance wasn't spec'd for giant moths when they built it, but at least they had the courtesy to install an aftermarket moth door on the roof. We made it inside, so I deployed Garfield, and he just now got the name Garfield. And at the start of day 36, we started descending into the cave. There's no going back now. There wasn't anything in the entrance, but I will admit, the caves look really good on this game. As we made it into the first cavern, there were some bugs. I roasted them. Garfield definitely doesn't have enough health to be taking many hits, but in the next area, everything was just stuck inside the wall, so they couldn't hit me anyway. I could hear so many in there. Great game. At the next spot, I started sniping some bugs, and everything was going pretty well, until the Arthros decided to disintegrate all of my cowboy attire. And instead of being an outlaw, now I'm just naked with tiny arms. Thylas can actually climb vertically though, and I didn't plan for that, but it allowed me to skip like half the cave. The flame arrows are still super overpowered, but Garfield was only at 500 health, and there's some bats ahead. It was getting kind of scary. Luckily, the mantis all flung themselves off a cliff, so I just had to deal with Arthros and bats. Arthros take increased damage from ranged weapons, so it's super easy to kill them with flame arrows. Bats are a bit more difficult though. Also, if you play PvP, flame arrows can destroy plant species X. They're overall just an amazing thing to have. Anyways, I managed to sneak past the remaining bats and I secured the cargo. And on the way out, I just kind of ran past everything, grabbing this blue cave drop right above a bunch of sociopaths that wanted to murder me. I climbed the wall to avoid them, and I headed back to base wearing nothing but gloves, while killing ants with a double-barrel shotgun like a man. I now have 2 out of 3 artifacts to take on Greg, so we just need one last cave, and we have to breed an army of Morellatops, maybe a UD or Wyvern as well. And I did manage to repair some of my armor, but I can't afford everything right now. Anyways, it was now time to make up for my failures, so I headed out to find a new Morellatops. But while I was out, I got 75 hide from a drop, and then I found a Journeyman Procoptodon saddle. We can use Optimus Prime. My moth is starving, but we did find a 140 Morellatops, so I started shooting. But then a random level 15 one came over to help, and my moth was super low health already from hunger. So I had to run away and cryo send a moth so he doesn't die. Oh, I forgot about that. I can't cryo. Here, buddy, eat some mushrooms. Maybe cactus broth? Bullets? Bro, I'll give you anything just to eat. So now I'm stranded and the Morellatops was nowhere to be found. Luckily, I did have a Thyla in my Pokeball, so I used him to knock this level 15. I was all out of berries, but luckily some terror birds donated me just enough to finish the taming. Garfield was starving at this point, but I got some fiber and hide from the structures that I found, and I finally have some silk to repair my desert cloth armor. Anyways, the Morellatops were breeding, and while waiting on that, I gave Optimus Prime the saddle he deserved. Oops. But then they took a quick break because of this direwolf, and another one showed up and murdered my low-level male. Bro, where are these dudes coming from? The first batch only had males with good stats, but I really need to get a bunch of perfect stat females with good health and melee so I can start breeding for mutations. So I hatched like 10 more eggs throughout the day, and I ended up with 2 female breeders, so I decided to stop for now. Once they're raised, I can forge an army of mutated camel dinosaurs. I probably don't have berries for all 5 of them, so I'm prioritizing the females, and that's also why death. Anyways, I ran out of berries, and one of the males died from malnutrition, so I decided to go out and farm some the old-fashioned way. That took longer than expected because Mr. Sandstorm. And while I was gone, one of the females perished because of an empty stomach. I managed to save 2 males and a female, which isn't optimal, but that'll work, I guess. Everyone seems to be good on food right now. So I loaded up some structures, and this might be a bad idea, but I'm gonna go scout the Wyvern Scar. The journey was a bit rough because Optimus Prime kept taking fall damage because his legs are too powerful. But on day 41, we arrived at our destination. It takes forever to get across the map without a flyer. So I set up one of my most impressive bases yet. Wait, that's not a door frame? So I headed down for some scouting with the whole mafia trying to stop me. This is terrifying, to be honest. I've never even attempted to do this without a flyer, but if I can make some grapples or something, this section doesn't have too many wyverns in it. So after taking on a part-time job as an exterminator and finding a metal behemoth gate in this yellow drop, I trekked across the entire map to prepare. On day 42, I had planted another Mejoberry crop for raising Morellatops. And after crafting a few grapples with what I had, Greg hired another raptor hitman to delete my Morellatops breeders. But we're still standing despite Greg's best efforts, and I contemplated for a while how exactly I'm gonna get this egg. Grapples will get me the egg, but I won't be alive anymore after that. So what do I do if I can't outrun or kill the wyverns? What if I just let them eat me? So I crafted 2 metal 1x1s with a storage box. And I don't know if this is gonna work, but we're about to find out. So after another road trip, I made it to my vacation house. I made some minor repairs, and now it's looking impeccable. I ran out of clay, okay? But then I realized that I forgot to bring a storage box. And I can't just farm one, so I had to jump all the way across the map, make a storage box, and then hop all the way back. That wasted the entire day, and the only productive thing that came from that journey was me finding some meat to feed Garfield. And Optimus Prime is starving now, but he did jump like 3 marathons, so I guess it makes sense. At this point, nightfall had approached, and I put everything up into my storage box. It was now time to execute my plan. I'm scared. I don't know exactly how to go about this, but I decided to try and run over on foot so I can respawn by Optimus Prime. But when I reached the bridge, there was a direwolf and a terror bird blocking my path. Then I almost got stuck on a rock, so I snuck around the side and I spotted a fire egg across the ravine. Oh, I should have brought parachutes. I eventually made it up there though, but I couldn't see the nest in orbit cam, so I wasn't exactly sure where it was or if I was in the right spot. I'm gonna go for this now.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Well, that probably went as bad as physically possible. I jumped in the wrong spot, I missed the grapple, and I forgot to set up the box before I jumped. Anyways, I need a parachute for next time, or maybe even a moth that can just be sacrificed for the egg. And I really like the idea of the moth, so I fast traveled back because I don't want to hop across country again. And I made some trinks and bolas. I found a level 45 close by and managed to snipe the fine gentleman with a bola. But when I started shooting, I got slowed by whatever that gas is, and after unloading my entire clip into him, he broke free and ran away. On day 45, I tried again, and this time it was a level 15. I named him Wyvern Bait. And after feeding some starving camels and tending to my crops, I headed back to the scar. The stamina is really bad. But as the sun rose over the sand, I arrived and I geared up. I do have a plan, but it's probably not a great one. It began with me setting up a metal 1x1 directly above the nest with the fire egg from earlier. But then this happened. I need that storage box for this to work, so I used Wyvern Bait to gas this thief. And I started punching, hoping to knock the dude out. But then he fell into the shadow realm. Like, really? What is wrong with this game? I did have one extra in my base, but that's it. So this was my only shot. Alright, it's Wyvern time. He's so close. So the egg is only level 25, but it's the most accessible one I have right now. So I put it in my pocket, I guess. And Wyvern Bait flapped his wings faster than he ever had before. Wait, did they just not care about their level 25 baby? Yeah, I guess we're clear. But then once I started heading away from my box, oh, bro came out the woodworks and I started panicking. I was so shook that I forgot where the 1x1 was and I got roasted. So I headed back over on Optimus Prime, contemplating life and how I got outplayed by an NPC. There were a ton of wyverns now, and a poison was really close to my body. But luckily, when I grabbed it, the egg was still there. I'm not exactly sure how it works on this game, but I have a fire wyvern egg. It's only level 25 though. And I realized that I actually need wyvern talons to fight Greg. That's gonna make this whole thing a lot more complicated than I originally thought. I need a method not to just steal eggs, but actually kill 6 wyverns. While I pondered on that for a while, I decided to start hatching the fire egg. It was too cold, which was to be expected, but I can't afford a ton of air conditioners either. So I decided to just make use of what I have and not waste too many resources. And I managed to set up a luxury incubation chamber furnished with 3 different styles of heating devices and finished with a parchment map of scorched. A lot of people actually don't know about this, but you can use angler gel as an alternate fuel source, and it gives this really cool blue flame. So yeah, the egg was incubating, and Lil Bro was preparing for war in there. Anyway, after doing a whole lot of, well, I didn't get much done, to be honest, but the fire egg hatched, and he did have a pretty decent food stat, so I think he actually might survive without milk. But on his 18th birthday, I'm gonna need to feed this man some jerky or something because he's probably gonna be pretty low. So I spent most of the day looking for meat, and I did manage to find a pre-made vault. I was also stacking up Morellatops eggs throughout the day, but not much else happened. On day 49, I continued breeding the camels, and I started hatching some eggs. I only kept the females because berries are extremely limited right now, and even then, the females are probably gonna be starving. And I kept searching for meat. Well, I tried to, but as the day came to an end, one of the eggs hatched a male with a melee mutation. That was amazing, and I've already used most of my berries at this point, but I'm gonna make sure this dude is eating good. But then a pack of wild sociopaths emerged from the desert, and they literally only targeted the babies. Like every single one of my baby females just got deleted. At least the melee mutation male is good, but I wasted so many berries on those other guys. Anyways, I've just been sitting here getting drops, and I might as well do something more productive while waiting on him to grow up. So I headed out to get the artifact of the crag. It took me a lot longer than I'm willing to admit to find this cave entrance. In my defense, it's pretty hard to see. This cave is definitely not as hard as the island caves, but it's for sure the most difficult one on this map. So I spawned in Donald Hump Jr. and encapsulated Optimus Prime. As we progressed through the cave, there wasn't too much, at least not in the beginning. Just like the other two caves, it's almost the exact opposite of the island, where everything overspawns on the first attempt. But eventually we made it to the back of the cave, and this is where things got difficult. Right off the bat, there was a Megalosaurus getting his beauty sleep. So I managed to neutralize all the immediate threats. And just for good measure, I ignited this sleeping beauty and then proceeded to slow roast this Megalania. Morellatops are actually kind of cracked. Anyway, after cleaning out the back section, I now had the artifact of the crag. Bro, what does it even mean to be crag? Oh, cool. So, I'm a gatekeeper, I'm a destroyer, and apparently I'm also a rock. As I started heading out of the cave, a mantis tried to suplex me from the stands, but we made it out pretty safely, and when I arrived back at my residence, I took inventory of all 3 artifacts, and now all I need is 6 wyvern talons, and a Morellatops army, of course. I started breeding the newly raised male with all of the old 0-0 females, and at this point, the fire wyvern was finally a full-grown man, and he ate all my beef jerky. So I took him out for a test drive. While I was out, I grabbed a drop and I leveled up the stamina a little bit. And while, yes, it is absolutely amazing to be able to just fly around the map like that, but I really need to conserve this guy's food, so I'm not going to use him unless I absolutely need to. Before the end of the day, I also started hatching some more eggs, since now I have about 200 more berries and some potatoes. And that entire egg hatching process carried over to day 53, and then it lasted throughout the entire day. I was only keeping the good females throughout this process. But by day 54, I had used up most of the berries, and I did have 4 females, so I'm just gonna let those grow for now. But I still couldn't leave because I needed to stick around for their staggered imprint timers. So while I was waiting, I kind of went around the area grabbing some drops. But then when I arrived back to my base, I witnessed a saber thug remove the existence of the Morellatops female. It was a good excuse for Mozilla Fire Wyvern to get his first combat kill though. After waiting on the last 2 imprints, one of which wanting prime meat jerky yet claiming to be an herbivore, everything was good at base, so I set out on my Fire Wyvern and I headed over to the Scar. The stam is decent so far, and I leveled the health a little bit, but he's definitely not healed up yet. I'm pretty sure you can take wyverns into this boss fight specifically, so I might actually try that. Anyways, there were swarms of wyvern on one side of the Scar, but on the other side, they were distracted. So I headed into the abyss, and there was another level 25 fire egg, and across from that, there was a level 15 poison. I really want something better if I'm going to be risking my fire wyvern's life, but the parents of these 2 eggs are actually the 2 wyverns that are out here terrorizing the locals in the desert. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I might try to see if Mozilla Fire Wyvern can take down that level 15 poison. Okay, so I may have paused my recording and then forgot to unpause it when I got back. So what happened was, a poison wyvern looked at me and he saw that I was out of stam. So I landed, but my stamina would not regen. But then I noticed he was level 15. So I challenged him to a duel. It was kind of hard to hit him. But then all of a sudden he just 2-shotted me. Yeah, so Mozilla Fire Wyvern is deceased. Anyways, now Mozilla Fire Wyvern is deceased, and the Morellatops are also starving. So I used pretty much all of my berries to sustain them, and I fast traveled back to my scar base. I'm really not sure what to do about wyverns now, but I guess I should probably get another one because I don't have the resources to build traps. But after making it back to base, I started to get kind of annoyed trying to upkeep the crops because the fertilizer keeps falling through the floor. So I headed out into the desert. I'm pretty sure that dung beetles spawn out here. And then I found a sand castle. Oh, this was my first encounter with the new Facilosuchus. He started doing some 360 no-scopes and I was a bit scared. And then I found a death worm. Help! And then I was very scared. I want to go home. But finally I found a dung beetle, so I named him after nobody specific. And I put him inside my penthouse on Wander because he automatically picks up feces in the area and produces fertilizer. On day 58, I knocked out a new level 15 moth, but then a saber broke my pants and erased the moth I just knocked out. Then my game crashed. Well, that was fun. Anyways, I loaded back up ARK Evolved and I proceeded to knock out and tame 4 different low-level moths. When I got them all back to base, we got raided by an army of rabid pigs, and there was so much stuff getting knocked around everywhere that I could barely move to stop the invasion. So I decided to reorganize a bit, and I had to demolish some sleeping bags and use all of my hide to make a backup moth saddle. And on day 60, we all headed over to the Wyvern Scar. It took the entire day because of how slow they are. But now I have 4 moths ready to go into death, and I bred 2 backup eggs just in case. I'm not leaving here without a good wyvern egg. By day 60, I was ready to head out, and I very cautiously stuck to the areas without many wyverns. 25, 40, level 15. I don't really want any of those, but there's a ton of wyverns everywhere else, so I might end up having to lower my standards a lot. Throughout the day, I checked the entire right side of the scar. The amount of wyverns over there is absolutely ludicrous, by the way. But the heat stroke was getting so bad that I was getting a headache, like in real life, just looking at my screen, so I had to head back to respawn. On my next attempt, I went to the left side this time, and it was really risky, but I decided to go for this nest. Level 20. Nice. Oh, he sees me! I don't know how, but I managed to outplay that man by using a moth with 300 stamina. Bro needs to retire from being a wyvern after that. But then, a couple minutes later, it finally happened. Oh, level 85. Admittedly, it's not great considering wyverns can go up to level 190, but after like 10 eggs below level 30, this is the best I've seen by far. As I was leaving, one of the wyvern police was immediately in pursuit. Oh, we got a suspect with little arms riding on a moth. But then, I lost him. There's no way it can just be this easy. On Evolved, whenever you just looked in the direction that might contain an egg, the entire regime dedicated their entire life to your downfall. But then, an ant hit my moth and disabled my stamina regen. And moths can't fight back, and I didn't bring my shotgun. So I had to take this dude down with my bare hands. Anyways, I finally made it back with the egg, and there was a poison fella close by, and I didn't want to bother him, so I had to move the moths. And then I respawned real quick to reset my food. But then when I came back, Optimus Prime was underneath the map. I thought they fixed this ever since my first video, but I guess not. And then a giant ant starts terrorizing my moth army, so I migrated the moths since there's no kangaroo to protect them. That's probably the most Australian sentence I've ever said. And when I headed back out into the heat, I found a level 90 poison egg. Poison is definitely the worst of the 3 for PvE, but it's a decent level, so I went for it. This time, the Wyvern Patrol did not let me off so easily though, and my moth was slowly running out of stamina. So I went for a 2000 IQ play, and I landed, put the egg in the moth's inventory, and started running the other way. And the Wyvern fell for it. He started chasing me instead of the moth. What a loser. Oh wait, never mind. See, this is what's supposed to happen when you grab an egg. I'm not really sure why the fire ones were so easy, but I realized that since Optimus Prime is under the map, I have no way of getting that moth saddle back. So I tried to go on foot, kind of scaling the edge of the wyvern scar. It was pretty sketchy, to be honest. And 800 meters later, I actually did make it to the moth's bag, but now there is a storm made from sand. I didn't really have a plan, but I grabbed the bag anyways, hoping the wyverns wouldn't care. Yeah, they cared. A lot. That's what usually happens, which is also why I was confused with how easy it was to get my body back before. Anyways, I managed to cross the bridge and grab my old moth saddle from that first egg like 20 days ago. And on my way back, I proved that we live in a simulation. But eventually, I was able to whistle down a new moth and head back over. My body was still being held captive by this level 55 poison wyvern, and I got a little too close. No! I thought I could lose him in the trees since I didn't take an egg or anything, but dude was the most aggressive wyvern of all time and chased me across 3 solar systems. I deceased. I really wish I had Optimus Prime right now. When the bed finally let me respawn, I ran back on foot because both moth saddles are over there now, and the poison nuisance was still blocking my path. Bro, can you not just go somewhere else? I waited for a bit, but Mans was not gonna move, clearly, so I decided to kite him and put him back where he came from.
Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me, so help me!
On day 66, I had another interaction with my mortal enemy, Mr. Sandstorm, and I realized that you can only track like 5 deaths back, so I really hope I didn't die too many times. But luckily, the furthest death back was the one I tracked, and it actually had the saddle and the poison egg. So I grabbed the egg, and I braced myself to be immediately immolated, electrocuted, and poisoned at the same time. But nobody showed up. So I now have a level 85 fire and a 90 poison egg. But I still have 2 more moths, and I have a saddle on me, so I'm gonna go for another. 10 fire, 50 electric, 55 poison. So there was nothing great in any of the open areas, but the wyverns were swarming the other side of the scar, and I don't really want to die today. So I decided to go for the level 50 lightning since I don't have a lightning egg yet. And yeah, this was the easiest one yet. I didn't even see a single wyvern this time. So since they aren't even over here, I went and grabbed the 10 fire and flew straight across to the 55 poison as well. But then they found me. I'm sorry. And then I realized that was my last moth saddle, and Optimus Prime is still under the floor, so I'm kinda stranded right now with 3 wyvern eggs. It took like an entire day, but eventually I got that last saddle back. And on day 68, I loaded up the eggs to head back to the green obelisk. Oh, that weight could be a problem. So I loaded up 2 of the eggs, and I headed back to the green obelisk. And after dropping it off at base, I took a second trip for the other egg and all of my gear. And now I'm back, and now it's day 70. The pace is actually kind of insane though. I don't think I've ever beat a challenge before day 100, ever. But it could happen if we don't fail the boss fight. Anyways, we had the whole family incubating, decent fire and decent poison, and slightly less than decent lightning. I wish I had one around 150 or higher, but if I use all 3 together, it should be pretty easy to get 6 wyvern talents. I was kind of excited, so I literally didn't even move. I just stared at some eggs. Yo, triplets? It's kind of annoying that it happened with the poison egg, but I'm definitely not complaining. So while I was waiting on these very fine gentlemen to become full-grown menaces, I used every last bit of my fiber and wood to block off all of the spawns around the obelisk. Because now it was time to assemble an army of Morellatops. I want Greg to fear me. A more than significant amount of time has passed, but I now have an army that's all starving and needs to heal about 25k health, but they'll get there. The wyverns are done too, and ironically the level 50 lightning was the only one that I was able to imprint. So I used him to extort some berries from the local carnivores. It's definitely not enough, but they won't die. Also, Lightning McQueen almost went extinct, so I gave him 30 beef jerky. But that's all that I have, and the other wyverns are all less than 1k food too, so I have to be really conservative. Anyways, it was time to face my fears, so I whistled all 5 of my winged beasts, and we headed out to steal some wyvern's fingernails. I kind of took a detour on the way there just to see if I could find an oasasaur. Bro's a walking planet. I don't want to tame him right now, but I'm going to come back after I get the wyvern talons, and I'm going to fulfill my promise to reincarnate Roadrunner. When I arrived, I noticed that all the wyverns are outside the ozone layer. I went for a poison first because that's probably the safest bet to start with. I had to be really careful not to evoke the wrath of the entire organization, but I managed to cut him down to my other wyverns. 5v1 is pretty fair, right? And after being evaporated by a heat wave, I invited another patron to our festival, and that marks 2 out of 6 wyvern talons. But the poisons are the easy ones. The fire and lightnings, they could be a completely different story. I headed out looking for a fire, but I managed to find a 15 lightning instead. And these guys are the most dangerous ones because they have lightning aimbot, which does insane damage regardless of their level. Next up, I found a bonfire with wings. Lightning McQueen got roasted, but we managed to take him down. But apparently Lightning McQueen is allergic to campfires. He got messed up pretty bad. So I decided to use Charizard for now and let Lightning McQueen chill out a bit while he deteriorates. Charizard only has 300 food as well, but I managed to find a lightning wyvern pretty quickly. Ow! And then Mr. Sandstorm decided to stop by, which hijacked all my stamina, and I had to spectate from a safe distance. That was kind of scary, but the poison triplets did some electrical repairs, and now we only need 1 more fire talent. But now Charizard is half health, and his stomach was rumbling, so this might be his last fight. I managed to find a 15 fire in a very crowded public area, and after the poison triplets took him out, I gathered all 6 talons, and I tried to find some meat to save Charizard, but then another sandstorm rolled in, and he's probably gonna die. But I did find an Ascendant treasure map, and I don't think I'm gonna need it, but I'm still gonna dig it up because that is so cool. When I made it back to base, Charizard was already in overtime, so I decided to use the lowest health poison triplet and go for the treasure map. That is actually amazing, but at the same time kind of useless. On day 90, after another sandstorm, I put on all of my best armor and I grabbed Roadrunner's essence. It was time to revive the guy that made this whole challenge possible. So I told my wyvern to land and proceeded to enter the 4th dimension. Hello? But after Charizard paid my bail, I started heading into the desert. It's actually going to be a lot harder using the galley because the taming scales off of your essence's health, and the galley is really lacking in that department. I'm going to do my best though. When I landed on this monstrosity, I noticed that the water gave me a perk called Gaia's Embrace. I'm not really sure what that does, but I'm blue. Okay, so all I know about this is that I'm supposed to put Roadrunner into this water, and then I'm going to get assaulted by rabid vultures. Sounds like a good time. On wave 1, I tested the wyvern, and it's definitely harming the oasasaur and maybe even the essence, so I had to stick to my guns. Literally. After the second wave, it started getting really rough without a good pump shotgun or assault rifle. Yeah, I failed, and Roadrunner is now gone forever. When I made it back to base, I was still pretty sad, but at least I was still blue. I was almost ready to fight Greg, but I remembered that I have a really good Mastercraft Yudi saddle. And Yudis are basically going to increase my survivability by 30%, so I decided to craft a trap and go find one. I searched for the rest of day 91, and then I searched into day 92. And I was still searching, and well, day 93 is almost over. I wanted to find a 130 or higher, and not only did I fail to find a good one, but I didn't find one at all. I'm pretty sure it's either glitched or they removed them from the map on Ascended. I checked this entire spawn region over 5 times, and they're supposed to be here, but something is clearly wrong. Anyways, it's day 94 now, and the Morellatops have healed a little bit, but they're starting to get hungry. I managed to keep them satiated for now since all my crops were full, but I needed to wait a while and probably feed them a bit more so they can heal. Well, that was fast. Thank you, editing. So I got everyone lined up around the obelisk. You're not invited, buddy. And I went to put the tributes into the terminal. Somebody put a bunch of stuff in here. And now it was time to see if we could take down Greg without ever lifting a pickaxe. But it was only day 99, and that's not very epic. So I sat here for approximately 20 minutes. The time has come. I hope you're ready, Greg. As we enter the fight, I was a bit worried because the Morellatops don't have any stimulants. This is a problem because Greg does a lot of torpor damage. I'm not worried about them dying. I'm just worried about them falling asleep. So we started heading down to the middle of the arena, and we were waiting on Greg to quit being a coward and finally land. Something that I wasn't anticipating, however, was that the Morellatops were starting to get stuck on rocks and falling below the map. At this point, we've barely done any damage to Greg, and my Morellatops was already 30% torpor. So now I only have a couple Morellatops left, a few are dead and a few are unconscious, but about half of them fell under the map. On the bright side, all of the death worms are distracted on the ones under the map, so they're not able to kill them and they can't actually come fight me. And I was trying my best to stay away from his poison shots because everything was getting really high on torpor, and the Manticore was starting to get pretty low. But as soon as I got him past the 25% health mark, the rock elementals began to spawn. Let's go! And just like that, Greg is no longer with us. and we beat Scorched Earth Ascended without ever lifting a pickaxe. If you want to see more of these, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to see me add 47 kaiju mods and increase their spawn rates 10 times, click right here.